Chapter 1380. Although Mo Qingwu and the other three encountered quite a number of obstructions along the way, their strength was no longer what it used to be. They rushed out of the southeast with ease. Mo Qingwu was a little quiet throughout the journey. Dong Wuxiang and Rui Badong, who couldn't hear Mo Qingwu sweetly calling out Brother Wuxiang and Brother Badong, were a little disappointed. What was the reason for this obedient, cute and sweet little sister to suddenly become so quiet? Both of them were a little worried. They were out of the Shao clan's territory the day before. Everyone also quietly heaved a sigh of relief. Along the way they were most concerned about the Shao clan's movements. Since there was no movement from the Shao clan, the four of them were still full of confidence in dealing with other forces. This night they camped in the wilderness. "Xiaowu, what's wrong with you?" Dong Wuxiang took the time to ask. "I'm fine." Mo Qingwu smiled lightly. "You've been very strange recently." Dong Wuxiang's rough face was full of worry. Mo Qingwu smiled slightly. "I'm really fine." "Second brother Dong, you've been brothers with Chuyang for so long. Tell me what happened between you two?" Dong Wuxiang was a little stunned. He really hadn't heard the term second brother Dong for a long time. Also, why was Mo Qingwu interested in those things? However, since Xiao Wu wanted to hear, and it was something that even Dong Wuxiang himself couldn't forget, Dong Wuxiang was naturally happy to tell her. Therefore, the topic was pulled far away by Mo Qingwu's simple and ingenious words. Mo, who was at the side, rolled her eyes helplessly. She was completely speechless at Dong Wuxiang's failed attempt to get information out of him. "Back then Dong Wuxiang began to narrate excitedly. Rui Badong also leaned over to listen, occasionally chiming in to add a few words. Mo was even more helpless. "Go and ask Mo Qingwu what was wrong." This was what Mo secretly told Dong Wuxiang and Rui Badong because these two had been in contact with Mo Qingwu for a long time and had always been respected by her. Therefore, out of concern, Mo sent the only two generals she could use over. Who would have thought that before she could even finish asking a question and get an answer, it would turn into these two idiots blowing their own trumpets? Mo held her head in her hands. He silently looked at Dong Wuxiang and scolded him in his heart. Can this guy still have some intelligence? Mo Qingwu listened to their stories with great interest. She didn't even blink and was often deep in thought. This made Dong Wuxiang even more excited. Among his brothers, Dong Wuxiang could be said to be one of the most clumsy talkers. Listening to his stories was extremely boring. Mo Qingwu had previously rejected Dong Wuxiang because of this matter. But today he was actually listening so intently. How could Dong Wuxiang's confidence not increase greatly? He even thought to himself, I do have some talent for storytelling. They would have children in the future. So I told her stories to coax her. He didn't notice that Mo was already speechless because of his stuttering narration. In that case, Chuyang is still quite sentimental, Mo Qingwu suddenly said without rhyme or reason. Dong Wuxiang and Rui Badong were speechless. Why did he suddenly say such a thing? Wasn't that obvious? In this world, she had never seen anyone who valued relationships more than Chuyang. Why did Mo Qingwu, who was the most infatuated with Chuyang, say such a thing? Of course. Dong Wuxiang said affirmatively, Chuyang values relationships. This is recognized by the brothers. Mo Qingwu was deep in thought. She blinked and said, in that case, he is not a heartless person. Dong Wuxiang and Rui Badong were speechless. Rui Badong reached out a hand and touched Mo Qingwu's forehead. Little Wu, do you have a fever today? Why are you always talking nonsense? Mo Qingwu's eyes flashed. She smiled lightly. Why is he not a heartless person? Dong Wuxiang and Rui Badong were dumbfounded for a long time. They made a decision at the same time. Don't talk to this little girl whose brain is suddenly in a knot. This girl is already unreasonable now. The two of them wiped away their cold sweat and retreated. Fortunately, Mo Qingwu didn't continue to pester them. Instead, she smiled affectionately, as if she was very satisfied. Then she sat under the roots of the tree, lowered her head and placed the dreaming of a Qingwu saber on her lap. She stroked it gently. An intoxicating smile appeared at the corners of her mouth. Dong Wuxiang and Rui Badong hurriedly turned their faces away. The little girl's smile was really lethal. The two of them were almost stunned. Rui Badong went hunting while Mo prepared to barbecue and cook. Just as they were preparing, they saw Mo Qingwu also walking over. Go and rest. Mo ordered with an unquestionable identity as an elder sister. Little girl, why are you here? Mo Qingwu showed an elder sister's smile, and said, let me do it. Mo's mind was in a mess. With a clang, the dark saber in Dong Wuxiang's hand fell to the ground. His eyeballs almost popped out. He had known Imo Qingwu since the lower three heavens. When had he ever seen this little girl cook? Every time it was when someone else was cooking, she would wait with a greedy look. After it was done, the little girl would always sweep the food clean with both hands, eating until her hands and mouth were full of oil. She couldn't stop praising. So delicious. So delicious. Then after eating, she would hold her little belly and sigh. I ate so much again, what should I do? Now, this little girl actually wanted to participate in cooking? Imo lay, or was pushed aside by Imo Qingwu in a daze. Then they watched Imo Qingwu collect the dead branches and then skillfully set up a rack. It was actually extremely standard. Then she skillfully lit the fire. There was actually no smoke and the fire was lit. Dong Wuxiang and Imo lay, were shocked. This was easy to say, but to really do it, one had to be experienced in the martial world. Not to mention Imo Qingwu, this young miss who had never done any household chores. Smack. Rui Budong, who had just returned, was shocked to see Imo Qingwu busy. The 4 hairs in his hand fell to the ground with a thud. The hairs were still alive. Instantly, one scurried to the left and the other to the right. Rui Budong actually hadn't reacted yet. Right at this moment, Imo Qingwu took a big stride forward, grabbed the hairs by the neck with one hand and threw them out, smashing the other one to the ground. Both hairs passed out at the same time. She did the same with the other hand. In an instant, the 4 hairs passed out on the ground. This was even more the way an extremely experienced veteran would deal with a problem in such a situation. Knock the hairs unconscious instantly but not kill them so as not to affect the meat quality? Dong Wuxiang exclaimed, "This is really unbelievable." Imo nodded in a daze. Then Imo Qingwu picked up the hairs and went out slowly. She found a place where there was no wind, cut open their bellies, skinned them and cleaned them. Then she brought them back, strung them up with branches and hung them over the fire. Then she started to sprinkle various seasonings on the rabbit meat skillfully. Very skillful. Not a single bit messy. The control of the fire was just right. Not long after, a strong fragrance began to spread. Drops of grease fell onto the fire. It filled the barbecue with even more flavor. When this strong fragrance came out, Imo lay, almost wanted to hide her face. She was so embarrassed that she couldn't show her face. Her barbecue skills actually couldn't compare to a little girl like this. She was an assassin, the 2nd generation of the Black Demons. Her wilderness survival skills were simply too horrible to look at in front of this fragrance. Have a taste. Imo Qingwu finally finished barbecuing. She separated the rabbit meat with a smile, one for each person. Dong Wuxiang and Rui Budong both ate the most delicious barbecue in their lives. With the first bite, both of them almost bit off their own tongues. This kind of deliciousness even made them feel extremely regretful. Such delicious barbecue, but there was no wine. What a pity. Even. Both of them had a feeling that Imo Qingwu's methods and the taste of the barbecue were somewhat similar to Chu Yang's. However, it was even more delicious than Chu Yang's. Of course, both of them didn't know that Chu Yang's culinary skills were so good because he learned them from Imo Qingwu, and Imo Qingwu's culinary skills were so good. It was also because she often cooked for Chu Yang over a long period of time. Just as they finished eating, the few of them heard unusual movements at the same time. At the same time they became vigilant. Then human figures appeared in the shadows of the forest. A large number of people were approaching from all directions. A voice chuckled and said, "It's really delicious. I can already smell the fragrance from a long distance away. Who is the chef here? I wonder if I can have a taste?" Dong Wuxiang and Rui Budong's expressions changed at the same time. This was definitely not a coincidence. They came prepared. This place was already a full 4,000 miles away from the flat mountain ridge. It could be said that the other party took great pains to choose this place. If it was a day earlier for the 4 supreme martial artists, it was completely possible for one of them to escape the 2,000 miles back. But it was different now. This place was almost out of the Shao clan's territory. It could be said that all the way back was the Shao clan's territory. Here, facing the Shao clan's heavy interception, it was absolutely impossible to rush all the way back. Dong Wuxiang's right hand was firmly on the handle of his dark saber. He said in a low voice, "Who is it? Come out." Under the light of the fire, Imo Layer's hand was on the handle of her sword. Rui Budong's expression was heavy. Only Imo Qingwu looked calm and peaceful. She was still handling the leftover bones of the few people and burying them in the ground. There was actually no trace of panic in her actions. That person laughed loudly. "Is the one who spoke Second Master Dong Wuxiang?" Second Master Dong is indeed a hero. His shout is mighty and majestic. You live up to your reputation. Dong Wuxiang, Rui Badong and Er's expressions became even uglier. The other party was very clear about their background. What did this mean? Mo Qingwu laughed softly and said, "There's a traitor in the Chu clan." That person laughed and said, "Miss Mo is indeed the disciple of the supreme martial artist of the world. You are indeed perceptive. You are really admirable at such a young age." Mo Qingwu said lightly, "You are here for me, right? Let the three of them go and I will go back with you." That person laughed heartily. "Miss Mo is indeed smart. She has indeed come for you. However, we absolutely do not dare to let these three people go. Once news of this gets out, how can this old man bear supremacy Ning's revenge?" Today's first update, there will be a chapter later. Gee, it's the end of the month. Because of my poor update, I am embarrassed to ask for monthly votes. However, after tomorrow the monthly votes will be invalid. If you have extra you can give me too, haha. I went out to buy things with my wife this afternoon. Due to some reason my wife refuses to let me enter the mall with her. I waited in the car. It was cold outside so I listened to music and ate loquats in the car. I opened the car window a crack and peeled the loquats while throwing them out. After a while someone suddenly knocked on the car window. I rolled down the car window and saw a beautiful woman. She was really beautiful and had long hair. She was looking at me angrily. I thought it was a romantic encounter so I decided in my heart, I will not be seduced. Then I asked lecherously, "Miss, what's the matter?" The beautiful woman stared at me and said angrily, "Look at me." I looked and saw that her snow-white down jacket was covered with loquat skin. It was exactly what I threw out just now. In all honesty, I really didn't do it on purpose. Oh my. Chapter 1381. Mo Qingwu smiled faintly. "You want to catch me just to threaten my master. Since that's the case, you will face my master sooner or later. What are you still worried about?" "That's only natural. However, its operation is of utmost importance." The voice from the shadow laughed. Dong Wuxiang said lightly, "It's not that easy to catch me." The four had the same hunch. There was a traitor in the Chu clan. The identities of Mo Qingwu and the others were no longer a secret. Other than the fact that Dong Wuxiang and the others were Tribulation's secret, all their other identities had already been exposed. And the ambush this time was planned precisely because of the close relationship between the traitor and the Shao clan. This was something that everyone had already thought of long ago. But even so, the traitor's position in the Chu clan couldn't be too low. Otherwise they wouldn't know. But now was not the time to think about this. The crisis was imminent. Without looking at each other at all, Dong Wuxiang and Rui Badong had already determined their respective tasks. Rui Badong would attack, Dong Wuxiang would stay behind. With a long laugh, a figure with his hands behind his back appeared under the light of the fire. This person was dressed in black, tall and slender, with 3 strands of long beard floating in front of his chest and brushing gently with the wind, looking very handsome. "I'm Xiao Wufeng." The man smiled slightly. "Second Master Dong and Brother Rui are geniuses. You're only in your 20s but you're already second-grade supreme martial artists. Compared to the two of you, I'm much more useless. I've wasted 3,300 years of my life this year, but I'm only a supreme martial artist. I'm ashamed." Dong Wuxiang said lightly, "Since we've come to this point today, not to mention supreme martial artist, even if you're a peak supreme martial artist, we won't give up at all. Old guy, what do you think? Do you think you can scare people just by saying that it's of supreme quality?" Xiao Wufeng's face darkened. He looked carefully at Dong Wuxiang and nodded in praise. "Second Master Dong is indeed rough but meticulous." Rui Badong laughed. "It's not that he's rough but meticulous, but your strategy is too old-fashioned. So old-fashioned that I don't even hesitate to criticize you." There was a muffled snort all around. Obviously, the Shao clan experts lying in ambush couldn't hold back anymore. "What are you snorting for?" Rui Badong squinted. "What? All of you have been eating and not drinking for the past few days? Can't you pull it down?" More than 10 people stood out from the darkness, their faces full of anger. Rui Butong had successfully attracted the aggro of the opponent to himself. However, he was clearly not satisfied and continued to clamor, "Don't blame me for looking down on you. If you have the guts, find someone with the same cultivation level and fight me one-on-one." One of them snorted coldly and said indifferently, "When we have absolute advantage we can't do anything. You still want to fight like a cornered beast?" Rui Badong sneered. "I really look down on all of you. You're such a big family, yet no one dares to fight Grandpa alone? Where are your guts? Have they all turned into needle tips? Why don't you tear off your faces and stick them on your butts? Come on, big family, is there another man? Are there any more? Where was the man? Where were the men from the big families? Where are the men of the Shao family? Everyone from the Shao clan trembled with anger. This bastard's words. This is too mean, Rui Badong continued to clamor. Damn it, so this is the case. The big Shao family doesn't even have a man with balls, so they have to ask me to grow old? But although I'm single, I still have some scruples. There are too many wolves and not enough meat. Can I fucking serve all of you? These words were extremely mean. Emole, and Emo Qingwu both blushed, however, the effect they wanted was immediate. A thin old man cupped his fists and asked, Elder Xiao Changhe requests to fight. Teach this arrogant man a lesson. Xiao Wufeng frowned. He said, be careful. However, he didn't stop him. This Xiao Changhe's cultivation level was the same as Rui Butong's. He was also at the peak of the second grade, but his combat experience was at least 1,000 years more than Rui Butong's. Xiao Wufeng was very confident about this battle. This was also the reason why he agreed. Dong Wuxiang and Rui Badong both breathed a sigh of relief. As long as it wasn't a chaotic battle, the two were confident that they could drag on indefinitely. Whether it was Chu Yang or Mo Tianji, they had both reminded them more than once. When you're at an absolute disadvantage and there's no hope, what you have to do is to stall for time. Even if there are no reinforcements at all. You have to stall for as long as you can. Just as long as you can. A long night is fraught with problems. Only with a buffer of time would there be changes. If victory and defeat were decided in one move, then even if there were reinforcements, it would be too late. Now the two were doing just that. Although they were isolated and helpless, they had to work hard until the last moment. A figure flashed and a sword light came like lightning, accompanied by a cold shout, Rui Badong. Come out and accept your death. Rui Butong raised his hand and deflected the long sword with a pa sound. His body flew out in an erratic manner as he laughed loudly, so the Shao clan actually managed to find someone with balls. Come, let me see if it's a woman dressed as a man. Suddenly, a cold light burst out from the short sword, and it stabbed toward the crotch. Xiao Changhe cursed loudly. He crossed his legs and the long sword poured toward Rui Badong like a river. The two of them rolled and rolled into a ball. The cultivation of the two was almost exactly the same. At this moment, Xiao Changhe's countless years of combat experience became especially important. Xiao Wufeng also narrowed his eyes and watched seriously. He agreed to fight one-on-one, partly because of Rui Butong's provocation, and partly because he was foolproof at this moment. The news came that the Moon Breeze couple was still in the flat mountain ridge, and Wu Jueqing had already arrived in the northwest. There was no longer any power nearby that could influence the battle. Since that was the case, it was better to observe the martial strength of these two young people. He heard that the magical Chu Yang's martial strength was about the same as these two in front of him. This would also lay a foundation for the future. The sounds of fighting were endless and the two figures flew here and there like ghosts. It was obvious that Rui Badong was slowly being forced into a disadvantageous position. The offensive was already in Xiao Changhe's hands. This was a victory. When the ratio of offense to defense exceeded 80%, it was a victory. Emole, stood behind Dong Wuxiang all along. In places where the light couldn't reach when Rui Badong was fighting, Emole, seemed to be afraid and moved a step behind Dong Wuxiang. No one paid attention to this small detail. Finally Rui Badong shouted, Damn it, I'm so angry. I'm going all out. Everyone's eyes were focused on the battle. Rui Badong let out a loud roar. The short sword in his hand suddenly activated his internal energy. The short sword suddenly shot out thousands of sword auras in auspicious colors. It rushed over with a rumble. Victory. Everyone in the Shao clan was overjoyed. Rui Badong was obviously going all out. And when he went all out when the battle was at a disadvantage, the openings he exposed were not just one or two. There were a total of 4 or 5 fatal weaknesses. As long as it was his first move back then, he could easily send the long sword into any part of his body. Xiao Changhe was in the battle and naturally understood this better than anyone else. A grim smile appeared on his face, and his long sword met Rui Butong's short sword. After blocking with his sword, the long sword could pierce into Rui Butong's heart. But he didn't want to do that. Instead, he made up his mind to cut off this little guy's tongue first. 2 swords, one long and one short. In the air they met each other fiercely. But at this moment something unexpected happened. Without any sound, the long sword in Xiao Changhe's hand suddenly broke into 2 pieces like tofu. The battle was like a pantomime. In the cheers of the Shao clan, Xiao Changhe was full of confidence. Even the position of his feet had begun to change, and the tip of his feet began to shift outwards. After the collision, the long sword would go in. But at this moment, the long sword suddenly broke into two pieces. The upper half of the sword broke away and somersaulted in the air, reflecting the fire at the side of the field, looking gorgeous and dazzling. Xiao Changhe didn't even have time to react. After the collision, although his hand was lighter, but he still followed the original plan. With a shake of his wrist, the long sword rose and pierced towards Rui Butong's mouth. If the other half of the sword was still there, this sword would definitely have cut off Rui Butong's tongue. But now, when it was half a foot away from Rui Butong's mouth, it stopped. Then Xiao Changhe felt a chill in his chest. Then he felt himself flying up. He indeed flew up, and with a sword in his hand he was in the air with a whoosh. But it was only half of his body. At the moment when the long sword broke, Rui Butong didn't give anyone a chance to react at all. He took advantage of the momentum and chopped Xiao Changhe's body into two halves. Blood spurted out. Everyone was stunned at the same time. In that instant, the victory that was originally 100% certain became a failure, and Xiao Changhe's life was lost. With a thud, Xiao Changhe fell to the ground. Only then did he let out an incredulous scream. "Ah, what's going on?" Rui Butong panted heavily and said quietly, "Nothing's going on. It's just that this short sword of mine is a sword that can cut iron like mud. That's all." Half of Xiao Changhe's body was on the ground. He looked at Rui Butong fiercely and said hatefully, "You are despicable." "I admit that I'm despicable." Rui Butong's mouth twitched. "I also admit that you're noble and upright. You relied on your numbers to ambush in advance and kidnap a little girl. Very noble. Very open and aboveboard. I admire you, a saint." Xiao Changhe screamed and suddenly fell to the ground. He was dead. There was silence. Xiao Wufeng looked at Rui Butong, his eyes full of murderous intent, and said lightly, "What a good weapon." Rui Butong grinned. "Actually, I just wanted to drag someone down with me. Now I've done it. Even if I die, it's not a loss." Xiao Wufeng nodded slowly. "Very good. Rui Butong, even you said it's very good. Are you going to send another person out for me to kill? Hey, is there anyone with balls among you? Is it a man? Come. Fight to the death with me." Xiao Wufeng's eyes were cold and he waved his hand. "Let's go together and chop him up." With a shout, the masters of the Shao clan rushed over from all directions. Chapter 1382. No one paid attention to Mole. Just as Xiao Wufeng shouted, the figure behind Dong Wushang suddenly faded and disappeared. Shadow Phantom Track. The Black Devil's unparalleled stealth and assassination skill. Dong Wushang let out a wild roar and unsheathed his black saber. The huge saber blade was brimming with majesty and power. His majestic body stood there like a lofty mountain range and couldn't be shaken. Mo Qingwu stood quietly at one side. She held the dreaming of a gentle dance saber in her hand, but it had yet to be unsheathed. Her expression was calm with tiredness. The crowd surged forward. This time the Shao clan came purely for Dong Wushang and the others. A total of second-grade peak-level experts, 4 third-grade supreme martial artists, 2 fourth-grade supreme martial artists, 1 fifth-grade supreme martial artist, led by a second-grade supreme martial artist. A total of 14 people. 14 supreme martial artist experts in the world. With such strength, facing Dong Wushang and 2 second-grade peak-level supreme martial artists, no matter who it was, they would definitely think that they would win. And in fact, it was indeed so. Rui Butong shouted and took the lead to attack. His body fluttered and turned into a stream of light, speeding out. The short sword in his hand slashed out fiercely. His speed had obviously increased again. In an instant, he flashed in front of 5 second-grade supreme martial artists and 3 third-grade supreme martial artists. The short sword in his hand stabbed at each of them. He challenged 8 supreme martial artists at the same time like crazy. The 8 supreme martial artists paused at the same time. It was not that they were afraid of Rui Butong, but they were afraid of the sword in his hand. Wasn't a divine weapon terrifying? Everyone knew that Xiao Changhe, who was accidentally killed by Rui Butong, had a sword that was not inferior to their own. It was also a sword that was as precious as one's life. But under the opponent's short sword, it was not even as strong as a piece of tofu. Now that they saw Rui Butong slashing at them, who would be fooled? However, just as they retreated, Rui Butong let out a long laugh in the next moment. Suddenly, with an inhuman speed, he transformed into thousands of clones and attacked the 8 people at the same time. This time, The 8 supreme martial artists were so angry that their noses were crooked. He was only a second-grade peak-level supreme martial artist, but he was facing 5 second-grade peak-level supreme martial artists and 3 third-grade supreme martial artists at the same time. He was even fighting 1 against 8 without any scruples. He was simply too arrogant. Even if your sword is the Calamity Sword, you can't be so arrogant. The 8 of them were enraged and attacked at the same time. On the sidelines, Xiao Wufeng and another 5th-grade supreme martial artist were on standby. The 2 4th-grade supreme martial artists stepped halfway into the arena, ready to deal with any attack from Mo Lei who had suddenly disappeared. Mo Lei suddenly disappeared. Everyone was aware of it. However, he did not take it to heart either. She was just a 1st-grade supreme martial artist. The one who was under the most pressure was the 3rd-grade supreme martial artist who was left alone, because Dong Wuxiang had already found him. Mo Lei's sudden disappearance caused Rui Badong to suddenly go crazy. It was to restrain the majority of the forces. And from the very beginning, the 2 of them already had a plan. Since Xiao Wufeng, the 2nd-grade supreme martial artist, didn't make a move at the first moment, and the 5th-grade supreme martial artist's position. He and Xiao Wufeng looked at each other, which proved that these 2 old guys respected their status and disdained to bully the weak. He only planned to observe the situation and did not plan to personally make a move. As it turned out, the 2 of them were right. Even if there was only 1 3rd-grade supreme martial artist left, Xiao Wufeng was not worried at all. No matter how fierce this 2nd-grade supreme martial artist Dong Wuxiang was, he couldn't be more powerful than a 3rd-grade supreme martial artist, right? But Xiao Wufeng did not know that he had made a fatal mistake. This 2nd-grade supreme martial artist Dong Wuxiang was not an ordinary supreme martial artist, but Saber Master. The Saber Master who had rarely appeared in the history of the heavens. In the face of a strong enemy, in the face of a 5th-grade supreme martial artist who was completely above him, Dong Wuxiang's demeanor was as calm as Mount Tai, as if his side was sure to win. Dong Wuxiang strode out, looking down at this 3rd-grade supreme martial artist and said lightly, "Supreme martial artist of the Shao clan, do you dare to take a blow from me?" This 3rd-grade supreme martial artist's eyes showed disdain and amusement. His sword flashed and he looked down on him, not saying anything. Meaning, come if you have the guts. Dong Wuxiang swung his arm. Boom. The scabbard of the black saber came out of the saber and shot out like a thunderbolt. And his body. Suddenly it straightened abruptly. At this moment, it was as majestic as an indomitable spirit and he shouted, "Slash!" The big saber slashed out with a whoosh. Halfway out, he suddenly became one with the saber, and his whole person turned into a long rainbow, crossing a distance of 50 feet. Holding the saber with one hand, he slashed down like a thunderbolt. The power of this saber tore the whole space apart, and there was an involuntary feeling of tragedy. With a clang, that 3rd-grade supreme martial artist pushed away the scabbard of Dong Wuxiang's black saber with his sword. He only felt a shock in his wrist and a heat in his palm. While he was still in shock, Dong Wuxiang's saber had already come over with the force of a thunderbolt. This saber was made with all his strength, with all his essence, energy and spirit. This 3rd-grade supreme martial artist could clearly feel the opponent's overwhelming willpower. If he dodged, the opponent's attack would definitely be like raging waves, and he would be at an absolute disadvantage in the first instant. And then the battle would last for a very long time. As a 3rd-grade supreme martial artist, if he was forced by this guy who was lower than him, where would he put his face? Besides, Dong Wuxiang's saber had completely locked on him, and his aura, spirit and mind were all locked on him. Even if he dodged, he would have to pay the price. This 3rd-grade supreme martial artist roared, and his long sword was tilted, and he neutralized and blocked at the same time. 50% of the force was diverted, and 50% of the force was repelled. Xiao Changyun was careless. Xiao Wufeng sighed slightly. This saber should have been blocked with all his strength. However, he was not worried. Xiao Zhangyun was a whole cultivation level higher than Dong Wuxiang. Even if he was careless, nothing would happen. The difference in strength allowed Xiao Zhangyun to have enough power to turn any situation around for Xia Xiaowei. Maybe the weak could win against the strong, but it would never happen in a fair head-on battle. But he didn't know that Dong Wuxiang was a saber master who could challenge someone 2 levels above him. And he didn't know that this saber master's hand saber was not only a peerless weapon, but also a full 570 kilograms. Dong Wuxiang's majestic body suddenly fell, and the more than 250 kilograms black saber smashed hard on Xiao Changyun's long sword. He didn't hold back at all. Xiao Changyun's eyes were filled with horror. The long sword made a brittle sound and suddenly broke into two pieces. Then the two pieces shattered in the air at the same time, turning into debris all over the sky. And Dong Wuxiang let out a long roar, and the heavy black saber smashed the other party's long sword. It went straight in, piercing through the chest of this third-grade supreme martial artist who was dodging in a panic. His sternum was shattered and he went straight into his chest cavity. The fierce saber energy stirred the internal organs of this third-grade supreme martial artist into a pulp, and blood splattered. Dong Wuxiang didn't even look at it and leaped straight away. It was like an unstoppable hurricane. He rushed out fiercely. The body of this third-grade supreme martial artist was neatly split into two halves, and Dong Wuxiang rushed out from the two halves of the body, into Rui Butong's battle circle in one go. Perhaps this third-grade supreme martial artist Xiao Changhe wouldn't understand until he died. From the moment Dong Wuxiang attacked, his target was Rui Butong's battlefield. As for himself, Dong Wuxiang didn't think that he had the ability to stop him at all. He was just a passerby, completely ignored. One saber strike, rushing into the place where the enemies were the most concentrated. This kind of dominance, especially when it was a second-grade supreme martial artist facing a third-grade supreme martial artist, was simply rare since ancient times. Even if Xiao Changyun was at his peak state, fighting steadily, when faced with a second-grade supreme saber and a fierce and domineering martial maniac like Dong Wuxiang, he could take him down in 7 or 8 moves. And when he was careless, what was even more fatal was that he actually met Dong Wuxiang head-on, which was several times stronger. Although he died a little too quickly, it wasn't an injustice at all. Dong Wuxiang let out an earth-shattering roar, falling from the sky like a mountain. Like a meteor with a bloody glow, he rushed into the battle circle violently. At this moment Rui Butong was already in imminent danger. 8 supreme martial artists were pinned down by him alone. The pressure at this moment was simply unbearable. Although the other party had dodged his short sword, although the dagger had dodged, there were 8 long swords stabbing at different places at every moment. It was just that in the time it took Dong Wuxiang to clash with the enemy, Rui Butong had already been hit 3 to 5 times consecutively, and his body was also hit by 3 to 4 palms. At the moment when Dong Wuxiang arrived, Rui Butong suddenly went crazy, as if he had found an opportunity. Counterattack with full force. But 10 palms with all his might collided head-on with the opponent at the same time. With Rui Butong's current cultivation, it was like hitting a rock with an egg. There was a rumble. With a snap, Rui Butong's short sword was broken. Dozens of palm energies pressed together, and the sound of cracking rang out. His bones were completely crushed and he became a pile of meat paste. He didn't even make a sound before he fell to the ground. But his last desperate counterattack caused this supreme martial artist's figure to stagnate for a moment. It was this moment of stagnation that determined life and death. Rui Butong used his own life to create a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Dong Wuxiang to kill the enemy. Dong Wuxiang descended from the sky. His dark saber suddenly shook violently, and a dazzling saber light shot out brilliantly. With the inviolable aura of a king, it rushed into the battle circle like a hot knife through butter. The saber of Saber Master at this moment showed its true power. Clang. One of the Shao clan's supreme martial artists who used sabers suddenly shook violently with his saber hand, and let out a cheering sound of submission. Saber Master. Damn it. Before the supreme martial artists could immerse themselves in the joy of killing the enemy, they were suddenly shocked by the enemy. They wanted to dodge at the same time, but Dong Wuxiang had already rushed in with death. With a boom, the body of a second-grade supreme martial artist was smashed into pieces. Another was slashed horizontally by the dark saber, and his body was split into 2 halves. Before the halves could be separated, Dong Wuxiang's dark saber had already sliced another third-grade supreme martial artist from the top of his head to his crotch. With a clang, a second-grade supreme martial artist and a third-grade supreme martial artist spat out blood and staggered back from Dong Wuxiang's saber. A ghostly figure flashed. Mo-Le-Er, who had disappeared for a long time, appeared silently. Chapter 1383. Mo-Le-Er's assassination skills were already at the pinnacle. After arriving at the upper 3 heavens and accompanying Dong Wuxiang, as her cultivation improved, the pressure on her also increased. With such a talented husband, Mo-Le-Er was proud on the one hand, but on the other hand she was also under a lot of pressure. She was always worried that her cultivation speed couldn't keep up with Dong Wuxiang's. When the husband and wife roamed the Jianghu, if either party's cultivation was weak, they would always feel that they were a burden. This feeling was especially strong when they encountered a strong enemy. Because if one party was weak, it would inevitably cause the other party to lose focus on one thing and lose focus on the other. As the successor of the Black Devil, Mo naturally understood how dangerous it was for the husband and wife to be weak. So during this period of time, not only Dong Wuxiang was working hard, but Mo was also working hard. As one of the 12 influential figures in the upper three heavens in her previous life, even if Mo aptitude was not as good as Dong Wuxiang's, she was definitely one in a million. During this period of tempering, her assassination techniques were close to mastery. Now, at the moment when Dong Wuxiang's saber was successful, Mo's ghostly figure appeared behind a third-grade supreme martial artist. With a horizontal slash of her sword, she beheaded this supreme martial artist who had just dodged Dong Wuxiang's saber and lost his balance and stumbled backward. Then her figure flashed away lightly, without even a drop of blood on her body. On the other hand, countless blue lights flickered, and hundreds of highly poisonous hidden weapons shot out like a swarm of locusts. In an instant, that second-grade supreme martial artist who had just retreated, suddenly covered his face and screamed. Traces of black blood spurted out from his eyes like water. It was a move of both eyes. He became blind in an instant. This person screamed madly displaying all of his cultivation, but what he faced was nothing but air. "I'm blind. I can't see. I can't see." Xiao Wufeng took a deep breath. Dong Wuxiang killed Xiao Changyun with the first strike, and Xiao Wufeng had no time to react. Even if he reacted, he wouldn't make a move. After all, it was a fair one-on-one battle. And Xiao Changyun's cultivation was much higher than Dong Wuxiang's. Under such circumstances, he was killed by Dong Wuxiang with one strike. He could only be said to be useless. Xiao Wufeng had no intention of rescuing him. And the next moment, when Dong Wuxiang's saber shot out crisscrossing saber energy, Xiao Wufeng was really shocked. Saber Prime. At that moment, even though he didn't say those words out loud, he opened his mouth wide and silently roared out those words. Immediately after, they took off like rabbits and swooped down like hawks. Before they could react, the 8 supreme martial artists were already dead. Someone died an unnatural death, another was blinded, and the only remaining third-grade supreme martial artist was violently blasted 70 feet away by Dong Wuxiang's saber. Seeing everything that happened before his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. It was a formidable lineup of 14 people. In an instant there was no one left. There were only 2 4th-grade supreme martial artists, 1 3rd-grade supreme martial artist, 1 5th-grade supreme martial artist, and 1 2nd-grade supreme martial artist left. And the other party had only paid the price of Rue Badong alone. A cloud of smoke exploded, and Mo's figure disappeared again in this cloud of smoke, disappearing without a trace. Xiao Wufeng looked at the field with deep eyes and stopped another 5th-grade supreme martial artist who was about to make a move. Wait. That 5th-grade supreme martial artist frowned and looked over. "Fourth brother, what's wrong?" Xiao Wufeng snorted and said, "Wading, we don't know about the other party's strength except for 1 saber prime, but the rest are clear. Even so, should we have such a big loss?" No. Xiao Wading took a deep breath. But it really happened. All the credit goes to that person, Rue Badong. Xiao Wufeng looked at Rue Badong, who was paralyzed on the ground like a lump of mud. But if it were any one of us when the battle started, could we have prepared for this? Such a scheme, such a plan, such facing death with equanimity? Xiao Wading's eyes showed respect. No. But he could. And he did it without any hesitation. He didn't care about his life and used his life as a tool to exchange for victory. Xiao Wufeng's eyes showed emotion. So, they could achieve this unimaginable result. And they saved the strongest person in the team. What a hero. Xiao Wading was silent. Indeed, at the beginning of the battle, no matter what aspect of performance, Rue Badong didn't look like the kind of person who had nothing to live for. This person had an extraordinary love for life. Laughing and cursing at the strong enemy, facing death calmly. What kind of detachment was this? Xiao Wading admitted that although he was a 5th-grade supreme martial artist, he absolutely couldn't do this. Even if he was already in a desperate situation, he still had to struggle for himself. How could he take the initiative to sacrifice himself before he reached a desperate situation? "I'm not as good as him," Xiao Wading said silently. "This person deserves our respect. When the battle is over, I'd rather bury Rue Badong properly even if our own people's corpses are exposed in the wilderness." Xiao Wufeng's voice was full of emotion. Our people died of carelessness, but he died of righteousness. The difference between them is like heaven and earth. the death of my own people makes me ashamed. But the death of the enemy can make me respect them. Xiao Wufeng's words were very heavy. But Xiao Wading didn't have any words to refute. This was indeed the case. What was there to say? The difference in strength was clear at a glance. But whether the team was united or not was even more clear at a glance. What a terrifying opponent. Right at this moment? What's going on? A shrill scream came, and the second-grade supreme martial artist suddenly began to crazily dig out his eyeballs, screaming, "Kill me! It's itchy. So itchy." The poison on Mo Lei's hidden weapon had already taken effect. Xiao Wufeng and Xiao Wading looked over, and their faces both changed. They saw that the outside of this person's eyes had already rotted to the bone. Mo Lei's poison was so fierce that it had already reached this point. Xiao Wufeng sighed deeply, stepped out, and a sword light flashed. The second-grade supreme martial artist of the Xiao clan cried out, and then stood still in a daze, a wisp of blood spurting out from his chest. The blood fell to the ground, and it had already turned blue. Go. Xiao Wufeng sighed and struck out a palm. The body of the second-grade supreme martial artist of the Xiao clan suddenly sank into the ground, and the ground seemed to be a bottomless swamp, swallowing his body in an instant. He was buried underground. This kind of poison couldn't be treated, and this kind of corpse. It couldn't be brought back to the clan so as to avoid unpredictable disasters. Then he raised his head and faced Dong Wuxiang, and his face became serious and heavy. Amazing. Second Master Dong, this old man really admires you. Dong Wuxiang's wound overflowed with blood from the recoil, and he coughed. He simply spat out a mouthful of blood which shot out like an arrow, and actually shot a small deep hole in the ground. He said, "So what if you admire me? So what if you don't?" Xiao Wufeng said heavily, "I don't have such a brother. I envy you, but unfortunately this brother of yours is already dead." Dong Wuxiang's eyes drooped. Looking at Rui Badong not far away, he said, "I'm proud of my brother. Life and death I have both." Xiao Wufeng shouted, "Good. What a good, have both life and death." At this moment, a stunning red light suddenly flashed, followed by a scream. Xiao Wufeng and Dong Wuxiang turned to look, and for a moment, both of them were stunned at the same time. There was nothing more strange than what was happening in front of them. The 4 eyeballs of the 2 of them almost fell to the ground. Shadow. A soft exclamation. A burst of mist. Obviously. Mo Lei, who had hidden herself, couldn't help but be shocked. But now no one cared about Mo Lei anymore. Everyone looked at the place where the red light was shining. Dumbfounded. Over there Mo Qingwu was dressed in red like fire, with a saber in her hand, surrounded by clouds and mist, like a dream. In front of her, a 4th-grade supreme martial artist was beheaded, lying in a pool of blood. Another 4th-grade supreme martial artist stared with his eyes wide open, his hands trembling like chicken feet, looking at Mo Qingwu as if he had seen a ghost, dumbfounded. It turned out that when the battle was intense just now, the 2 4th-grade supreme martial artists had already bypassed the battle circle and came to Mo Qingwu's side. Mo Qingwu was standing calmly with a sheathed saber. That supreme martial artist smiled and said, "Miss Mo, you are a 2nd-grade martial saint. To have such achievements at such a young age, you are already unique in this world. I admire Elder Ning's ability to train his younger brother. But, in front of me, Miss Mo, do you still want to work harder?" Mo Qingwu said lightly, "You and I are enemies. When enemies meet, even a 2nd-grade supreme martial artist has to fight hard, let alone you, a mere 4th-grade supreme martial artist." That supreme martial artist laughed and said, "Miss Mo is really arrogant. Look, not only did Miss Mo receive the true teachings of supreme martial artist Ning's cultivation, you also received the true teachings of supreme martial artist Ning's arrogance." Mo Qingwu retorted coldly, "What does it have to do with you what true teachings I have received? Or do you think that you can be on par with my master? You are already qualified to criticize my master's disciple?" That 4th-grade supreme martial artist was speechless, his face as red as a tomato. Yes, Ning Qianya's disciple, no matter what, even if she was born a good-for-nothing, was not something that he, a mere 4th-grade supreme martial artist, could criticize. Just as Mo Qingwu said, "Who do you think you are?" But this supreme martial artist really didn't expect Mo Qingwu, this little girl, to be so sharp-tongued and merciless. In his anger out of humiliation, he said furiously, "Little girl, you have a sharp tongue. When we go back this time, see how I will deal with you." He opened his big hand and made a grab for her. In his opinion, with this grab, even if Mo Qingwu was a 1st-grade supreme martial artist, not to mention that she only had the cultivation of a second-grade martial saint. He was already 2 to 3,000 years old. If he still couldn't take down a 13 to 14-year-old little girl, the heavens wouldn't allow it. But just as he reached out to grab, he saw this little girl reach out and grab the hilt of that toy-like saber. I will continue to work hard. Looking for a guaranteed monthly ticket. Gee, recommend a book? I should recommend Ultimate Holy Spirit. If anyone is interested, you can take a look and add it to your collection. G. Chapter 1384. Seeing Mo Qingwu's saber, even though he only saw the scabbard, this supreme martial artist was still a little scared. This was obviously a handicraft saber. How could a saber be so delicate and exquisite? Even if it was an ornamental saber, it didn't need to be so small. It was obviously a gorgeous saber made by Ning Tianya to please his disciple. As for what kind of earth-shattering power this saber could unleash in the hands of a 13 or 14-year-old little girl, that would really be ha-ha-ha. And not to mention that this little girl was only of saint level, therefore he simply grabbed it without any hesitation. If Mo Qingwu attacked with the saber, he didn't need to dodge at all. He could just grab it directly. If he could grab the saber that this little girl treasured so much at the critical moment of life and death, he could also take revenge on these little girls for looking down on him just now. Mo Qingwu's body flew backward gracefully. This supreme martial artist chased after her unhurriedly. He grabbed her with one hand and said with a smile, "Miss Mo, don't struggle anymore. You know it's useless." At this moment, Mo Qingwu's wrist moved. Her right hand pulled outwards and her left hand grabbed the scabbard and pulled it horizontally. Her actions were done in one go. In the middle of the dark forest in the middle of the night, a red light suddenly shot up to the sky. The red light flashed. Mo Qingwu mercilessly and cleanly slashed with the saber. With one slash, she chopped off the hand that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws in front of her. Even when dreaming of a gentle dance, saber didn't feel the least bit of resistance. The right hand of the fourth-grade supreme martial artist left home. Mo Qingwu's momentum wasn't over yet. Her saber, surrounded by red light, rushed over. Before the sinister grin on this supreme martial artist's face could turn into terror and pain, his head was chopped off like tofu. The head spun and flew up to the sky. In midair, on that lifeless face, it was actually still a hideous smile full of satisfaction. Mo Qingwu swung her saber. Even she herself didn't expect such a result. A saber that connected the hand and the head. It was actually cut off so easily as if it was nothing? The result was already out, but Mo Qingwu was still stunned for a moment. Not only Mo Qingwu, everyone was stunned. This was simply too inconceivable. Everyone was dumbstruck. Their eyeballs almost fell to the ground. This included Dong Wuxiang, all the surviving experts of the Shao clan, and Imole. Everyone was stunned. What was going on? They naturally didn't know that Chu Yang had almost fallen out with the sword spirit in order to forge this saber. The sword spirit, who had always strived for perfection, had almost gone on strike. When Chu Yang first forged this saber, it was already a peerless treasured saber. On the third day, seeing Mo Qingwu. The second time it was processed, it was already a treasured saber that had begun to have spirituality. They arrived at the upper three heavens. During the third processing, the materials used made even the sword spirit's entire body tremble in pain. It could be said that in the entire heavenly layer, other than the Calamity Sword, Mo Qingwu's saber was definitely the best. One of a kind. It was a blade of ancient times. This saber even contained all the love of the Calamity Sword master. The first time this saber was drawn out of its sheath and stained with blood, it killed a fourth-grade supreme martial artist. And this fourth-grade supreme martial artist of the Shao clan had also completely created history, a precedent. A record was created. A miracle of a fourth-grade supreme martial artist being killed by a second-grade martial saint in a second. A record of a 2,000-year-old supreme martial artist being killed by a 14-year-old girl with a single slash. The people of the heavenly layer had a new topic to talk about from then on. There was also a new teaching material for the education of underestimating the enemy. Everything started today. Because as a fourth-grade supreme martial artist, he definitely shouldn't die so mercifully. Mo Qingwu's first killing in this life actually happened in such a situation that even she herself couldn't react to. Qingwu Dream's saber in Mo Qingwu's hands was flowing with colorful lights, shining in the dark night. Rings of colorful lights surrounded the saber, dreamy and illusory, like mist and poetry. It was like a distant and magnificent dream that bloomed in the hands of this angelic little girl. Mo Qingwu held the saber and suddenly felt a warmth coming from the saber. This warmth spread all the way to the bottom of her heart. Her eyes suddenly brightened, and there seemed to be a hint of shyness and satisfaction. This saber was given to me by him. Now I finally know how much effort he put in for this saber, how much effort he put in, and all of this was for me. As the disciple of a supreme martial artist, Mo Qingwu naturally knew the power of her saber. If it was any other weapon, even if it was Gu Duxing's black dragon sword, Mo Qingji's heavenly secret fan, Rui Budong's short sword that just killed a supreme martial artist like cutting vegetables, or Dong Wuxiang's mighty and domineering dark saber, none of them could do it. Perhaps these weapons could break through the defense of a fourth-grade supreme martial artist, but definitely not so easily. There were only two weapons in the heavenly layer that could do all of this, a saber and a sword, Calamity Sword and Qingwu Dream Saber. This didn't mean that Chu Yang didn't put in effort in forging weapons for his brothers, but no weapon could be like Qingwu Dream Saber where he put in all his effort, even his mind. This was also the reason why Qingwu Dream Saber could produce a divine weapon spirituality so quickly. Then Mo Qingwu felt her stomach churn and she vomited. This was the first time in her life that she killed. Even though Mo Qingwu was the younger brother of the #1 supreme martial artist in the heavenly layer, this instinctive reaction still couldn't be restrained. Good saber. Xiao Wufeng praised, his eyes overflowing with murderous intent. Today could be said to be extremely unlucky. 14 people came out together, and before half of the mission was completed, 10 had already died. There were only 4 people left and their cultivations were in a row, 3, 4, 5. A 3rd-grade supreme martial artist, a 4th-grade supreme martial artist, a 5th-grade supreme martial artist, and a 2nd-grade supreme martial artist. What's the name of this saber? Xiao Wufeng took a step forward and asked solemnly. Mo Qingwu vomited twice. She quickly adjusted her mood. Now her heart was calm and she said lightly, the name of this saber. Qingwu Dream Saber, Overflowing Mortal World. As soon as these words came out, Xiao Wufeng, who bore the brunt, didn't react. But Mo Qingwu, who said these words, was suddenly stunned. Qingwu Dream Saber, Overflowing Mortal World. Mo Qingwu suddenly remembered a sentence that Chu Yang said in her dream. That was after her dance. Qingwu's dance is as bright as the starry sky, but also like a dream. Qingwu's dance is enough to overflow the mortal world. Mo Qingwu held the saber, and a trace of gentle satisfaction suddenly appeared on her beautiful face. Qingwu Dream Saber, Overflowing Mortal World. Xiao Wufeng murmured and repeated. He shouted, good saber. But such a saber in your hands is a waste of God's gift. Take her down as soon as possible. Xiao Wufeng shouted. The cruelest prelude to this night was undone. Too many people had died. He didn't want to delay any longer. However, right after he roared, a voice rang out. One person shouted, yes, sir. Then there was a scream. Xiao Wufeng turned back to look, and he was so angry that the corners of his eyes almost split open. The remaining 3rd-grade supreme martial artist's eyes bulged, his throat gurgled, and he slowly fell to the ground. Behind him, a winking smiling face appeared. This person actually reached out and waved, making a triumphant return. He laughed and said, I'm back, did anyone miss me? Xiao Wufeng, Xiao Wading and that 4th-grade supreme martial artist, the 3 of them were so angry that their noses were crooked. Rui Budong, who had already turned into a pile of mud and whom the 3 of them were still praising for his loyalty, actually stood up leisurely. With a swoosh, another short sword was pulled out from the back of the 3rd-grade supreme martial artist's heart, and he kicked the corpse away. He staggered over and sighed. This is bad, I didn't expect that I, Rui Budong, would also be an assassin today. My good name that has spread all over the world, that upright and plain-spoken image, that beautiful reputation of unparalleled loyalty, is ruined just like that. It's really sad and lamentable. Xiao Wufeng roared, little were you pretending just now. Rui Budong looked at him strangely. Why, are you very strange? You seem to be very excited? What? So many people in your family died, why are you so excited? Xiao Wufeng's chest rose and fell, and he only felt that his face was burning. What a shame. He actually praised the other party's trick for a long time. This was directly equivalent to being slapped hard in the face by the other party, in front of the whole world. Xiao Wufeng couldn't bear it anymore. With a roar, he suddenly raised his hand. The moment he raised his hand, a golden divine light suddenly emerged from his hand, completely illuminating the whole dark forest. At this moment, whether it was Dong Wushang Rui Badong or Mo Lei in the land of shadows, they were all illuminated and had nowhere to hide. Then, a huge golden palm was formed in the air with a radius of hundreds of feet. It slapped down hard. The moment it slapped down again, Mo Lei and Rui Badong felt an unstoppable force at the same time, and they flew up involuntarily and leaned against Dong Wushang. The big golden palm slapped down mercilessly. Xiao Wufeng's anger had reached the extreme. This palm was bound to kill the three of them in one fell swoop. No matter what tricks or conspiracies you have, I will destroy them with the strongest force in one fell swoop. Dong Wushang roared to the sky, and his dark saber attacked desperately. However, the dark saber was pressed back halfway. Mo Qingwu's red clothes flashed, and the Qingwu Dream saber struck out like lightning, but it was stopped by Xiao Wading. Seeing that huge hand falling down like a landslide, the four of them were at a loss of what to do. Right at this moment, Rui Badong suddenly roared towards the sky. Then he fiercely bit his own tongue and spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Then Rui Badong roared, "Nirvana to the Big Dipper, purple cloud to roam freely, fiery light burning heaven tower, 110. With a red sound, a purple flame burst out from his body. In an instant, the flame enveloped Dong Wushang and Mo Lei in the flame. A wisp of fire flew out, and Xiao Wading slashed with his sword, but the long sword suddenly melted in an instant. Mo Qingwu retreated in shock. But her waist was wrapped around by this purple flame. Then she was lifted off the ground. She was unexpectedly dragged into a sea of purple flames by this flame. The purple flame rose into the sky, and in an instant, it spread out. In the sky, a red light rose. Chapter 1385. The weird purple flame turned the whole forest into a sea of fire almost in the blink of an eye. And this purple flame seemed to have wisdom and consciousness, and actually knew how to distinguish between friend and foe. When the Shao clan's supreme martial artist's weapon came into contact with the purple flame, it turned into molten iron in an instant, but Mo Qingwu and the others were completely surrounded by the flame and were unharmed. The fourth-grade supreme martial artist couldn't dodge in time, and with a scream he was turned into a wisp of smoke by the flame. Xiao Wufeng and Xiao Wading were shocked, and the two reacted almost at the same time. "Run away." However, a strange voice came out from the purple flame. "What's wrong? You forced me to this point and now you want to turn around and leave? How can it be so easy?" Before the voice died away, two rays of light suddenly blasted out from the purple flame. Xiao Wading leaped and had already gone out 500 feet, but the flame was like a maggot in the bone, chasing after him persistently. His leaping momentum was enough to directly rush out 300 feet. But when he rushed to 100 feet, he was caught up by the purple flame. Then the flame seemed to have several huge tentacles, and each tentacle seemed to have several suction cups that could devour the world, dragging his body fiercely. He screamed and struggled desperately, but the flame held him firmly, lifted him up in the air, and threw him up violently. The cold voice said, "Let's set off a firework first." Xiao Wading's body flew straight up into the sky for thousands of feet, with burning flames all over his body. It was really as gorgeous and colorful as fireworks. Especially at the end of the burning, there was an explosion, and shooting stars shot in all directions, adding an inexplicable magnificent color to the night sky. Some people saw it from afar and they all exclaimed, "Who is this starting to set off firecrackers before the new year? But this thing is really beautiful, let's make one tomorrow." "I just don't know the method." Xiao Wufeng almost didn't dare to look back, and used all his cultivation to escape. While running, he wished he could slap himself hard in the face. "I'm so stupid. Really? I'm a fucking idiot. Why am I so slow to realize it? What a tragedy. People can be stupid. But they can't be stupid, especially at the critical moment when their brains short-circuit. That would be consigned to eternal damnation." Now this old man had made such a mistake. This old man should have run away as soon as he saw that little guy standing up after being beaten to a pulp. What did that mean? Motherfucker. Even if Ning Tianya and Bu Luqing were to join hands, they would still be dead after being beaten to a pulp. Since that guy didn't die, then he must be the legendary Phoenix. Thinking of the word Phoenix, Xiao Wufeng finally couldn't help but feel frustrated. He slapped himself hard on the face and scolded, "You stupid idiot." It was clear that he had his suspicions at that time. "Yet you're still standing there with that pig-wasted face of yours? You should have left earlier. Do you have to be in such a state where you can't control your own life and death?" While cursing and running, he clearly felt the heat behind him getting closer and closer. Xiao Wufeng wanted to cry but had no tears. At this moment he really scolded the traitor of the Chu clan to his heart's content. Xiao Wufeng swore to the heavens, as long as he could leave here alive today then. The first thing he had to do was to immediately go to the Chu clan to kowtow and apologize, and then catch the traitor himself. In front of everyone in the Chu clan he would skin that guy alive, then pour oil on him and thread him from head to butt with a cotton thread. Light up a sky lantern. Even if he only had one breath left. Even if he had to be carried, he would have to be carried there. What a fucking trap. Even if it was a trap, it wouldn't be set up so viciously. What's more, it was him who had received the news to set up a trap to deal with the traitor. This was simply sending himself to death. And it was a big meal for the traitor. Could it be any more deceptive? Even if your information was not accurate and you didn't know that there was a top female assassin, this was excusable. Even if your information was not accurate, there was a saber master among them that you didn't notice, or you didn't get such information, or you couldn't see through her because you were lame, but you can't trick this old man like this. There was still a phoenix in this damn trap. I'm really fucking wronged. As a senior figure of the Xiao clan, how could Xiao Wufeng not know the legend of the phoenix? The Phoenix clan was the dominant clan of the heavenly continent 10,000 years ago. There had always been very few phoenix bloodlines, but as long as one appeared, it would be a master. And it was basically immortal. Except for using the power of creation or letting the phoenix die of old age when it couldn't break through its lifespan, there was really no one who could kill the phoenix. Because, once it encountered danger, it would be killed or chopped up, but as long as a little bit of its true spirit remained, it would be able to come back to life. If you forced it too hard, fine, I'll give it a nirvana. I'll give you a heavenly fire of nirvana, which could burn the world. Due to reproductive difficulties, the Phoenix clan was also endowed with a special ability, nirvana. Every time it was nirvana, the heavenly fire of nirvana would burn all the lives around it that could threaten it. To avoid being taken advantage of during the short period of weakness after nirvana. In theory, the Phoenix couldn't be killed directly. It was even more powerful than a giant dragon, unless something like the heavenly layer was directly folded with the power of creation 10,000 years ago. However, there had always been a prophecy in the heavenly layer world, showing that the Phoenix clan was not extinct at all. Like the 3 stars divine clan, the dragon clan, and the elf clan, they would have a chance to come back sooner or later. Although the Phoenix clan and the dragon clan had never appeared with the blood of the previous masters of the tribulation sword, it didn't mean that this prophecy was false. Dragons soared into the clouds, phoenixes soared into the sky, the 3 stars shone and fairies appeared. The matters of the mortal world shook the sky, and the power of tribulation shook the heavens. Xiao Wufeng slapped his own mouth again. You're an idiot. Now you're about to die, aren't you? Xiao Wufeng already felt that the scorching heat behind him had caught up with him. After he was thousands of feet away from the original site, the purple flame suddenly accelerated and was already behind him. Xiao Wufeng showed a look of despair. He suddenly envied those supreme martial artists of the Xiao clan who had died under the sword. Although those people died, at least they had a chance to reincarnate, but he died under this heavenly fire of nirvana, and didn't even have a chance to reincarnate. If he had a chance to do it all over again, Xiao Wufeng would never deal with these 4 people. This was purely a hornet's nest. But he had no chance to regret. With a bitter smile on his face, Xiao Wufeng felt that he was caught up by the other party in the sky. The scorching flame, at this moment, even the air around his body was burned into a black hole. A heart-wrenching pain. It seeped into his bone marrow. He didn't scream, struggle, or even speed up. He just sighed with a bitter smile and stopped his body, allowing his body, which had already surpassed the boundary between immortal and mortal, to burn into a huge firework in the air. When he took one last look at this world, Xiao Wufeng's eyes suddenly widened. Because he suddenly saw that the peripheral forces he had arranged earlier were rushing over here one by one. It seemed that some amazing treasure had appeared here, waiting for them to come and get it. One by one they flew very fast. Xiao Wufeng was so angry that his intestines exploded. Don't you think there are enough people dying? He wanted to yell and stop them. However, the purple flame immediately burned into his mouth, making him unable to speak. He wanted to warn them with his divine thoughts, but as soon as his divine thoughts were sent out, they were burned. He could only watch helplessly as his grandson rushed over excitedly. At the last moment he vaguely heard a person's voice. Wow! Who set off such a huge firework, so fucking interesting? Maybe it was the ancestor who threw it up on a whim? Brilliant. Beautiful, especially at this night, it's really pleasing to see. Xiao Wufeng thought, if you knew that this firework was me, how pleasing would it be? A bunch of little bees. Fucking hell, he couldn't think anymore. Because his body exploded with a bang. It turned into a new round of meteor flames all over the sky. Below, 3 Shao family teams came from 3 directions. In one of the teams, a person raised his head and shouted excitedly, "Look! Fireworks! It's gray. It's gray again. So beautiful." All over the mountains and plains, people and animals within 1,000 miles, after seeing this soaring red light, somehow had such a thought in their hearts. This is the unearthed treasure. If I get it, I'll be the richest person in the world. If I get it, I'll be a beautiful wife and concubine. If I get it, I'll be the #1 master in the world. If I get it, I'll be, within a radius of 1,000 miles, everyone scrambled to rush over. Everyone's face was full of urgency and everyone's eyes were full of greed. This naturally included the people of the Shao family, and they were running at the front. The next moment, the people of the Shao family had already rushed to the edge of the fire. Seeing this soaring fire, they were all dumbfounded. However, before they could take any action, the flames dragged them all into the sea of fire with a hideous smile. In a series of screams, they turned into thick smoke. The fire of nirvana, also known as the fire of lust, could not only burn everything, but also ignite the deepest and most despicable desires in everyone's heart. Everyone, in the face of such a flame, involuntarily turned into a moth flying into the fire. The raging fire spread out quickly, and wherever it passed, all the creatures disappeared without a trace, turning into wisps of green smoke. However, the flowers and trees during this period were not damaged at all. Green, lush and luxuriant, within a radius of 2,000 miles, the raging fire raged. After reaching a certain limit, all the flames suddenly disappeared. Only the red light that soared into the sky was left. However, no matter who it was, no matter what cultivation they had, they could no longer take a step into this area. As long as they took a step, they would be engulfed in purple flames. From all directions, countless birds began to rush over. Today, I ran back and forth between the 2 hospitals, and found another hospital to take an X-ray to confirm it. Then, I asked if there would be any consequences if this kind of wrong treatment was carried out for a year. The result made me feel a little relieved, and a few old doctors said that other than suppressing the nerves for a year, the fatigue would be strong, but there was no big problem and it would slowly get better in the future. They also warmly taught me a few training methods. Then, they said that I was lucky to have discovered it early, and if this continued for 3 to 5 years, it was not impossible for my sciatic nerves to be paralyzed from the pressure. Then they said that it was no big deal and it would not affect your career. Although we were familiar with each other when they said that, I was still furious. When I returned to this hospital again, I was promised that my medical expenses would be halved. I pinched my nose and accepted it. So, the matter was basically over, although I was still a little angry. Gee. Then I begged for monthly votes. Chapter 1386. Chuyang and the others sped all the way. And the fire in the distance was the best guiding light. The brothers didn't even have the patience to climb mountains. The people in front directly became one with their swords and rushed out from the mountains, while the people behind followed. It was an absolute straight-line distance. Along the way they also saw countless people gathering in the same direction. The fire in the sky also continued to exist. On the first day, Chuyang and the others covered a straight-line distance of 4,000 miles. This was a terrifying number. Although supreme martial artists could fly for a short period of time, a person's cultivation wasn't endless. Of course, it was possible to cover a distance of several thousand feet with one leap. However, this leap required a huge amount of inner energy as the backing. Even supreme martial artists would eventually die from exhaustion if they maintained such a speed for a long time. On this point, Chuyang and the others finally admitted that they couldn't fly as fast as those big birds in the sky. It was as if those damned birds were racing with them. From the very beginning, they had been flying in the sky, and they were also burning with impatience as they flapped their wings and flew at high speed. Occasionally, they would also curiously look down at the 7 people running on the ground. That's not right. Are they also in a hurry to meet the king of birds? But they don't look right. Why are they running? Why aren't they flying? Do you know that there are still running birds in the world? The birds were extremely surprised. And they weren't inferior to their flying speed at all. When they finally saw these crazy birds stop, the birds in the sky let out a triumphant cry. They flapped their wings and flew away. These strange birds just don't have as much stamina as us. If Chuyang and the others knew about this, they would probably vomit blood in unison. But now, the 7 of them were almost paralyzed from exhaustion, lying on the ground and panting heavily. I wonder what that bastard Rui Badong is up to. This time I'm so tired. Luo Kadi's legs twitched as he lay on the ground and counted the stars. He said fiercely, "If this bastard is fine after we go over and see him, I'll beat him until he goes through nirvana again." GMO gasped for breath and chimed in, "That's right. Before he goes through nirvana, we'll do a small surgery so that he can become a female phoenix after he goes through nirvana." Mo Chenji panted. "Yes. Be Xia Danxiong's concubine." Xia Danxiong was gasping for breath as he laughed heartily. But he was suddenly caught in the crossfire. And he was left dumbfounded for a moment. Ao Shiyun said, "Could it be that Rui Badong likes to look for rabbits after becoming a female?" Xia Danxiong exploded, after the commotion. Chu Yang was very dissatisfied. He reprimanded, "What's the matter with you? How could he say that about his own brother? This is unforgivable." Minister Chu had suddenly assumed the air of a big brother. And all the brothers were startled for a moment. It seemed that he was serious about this matter. So everyone felt somewhat uneasy. Xia Danxiong's eyes were brimming with tears. "Boss is still the best," Chu Yang said angrily. "Even if Xia Danxiong looks like a rabbit, you shouldn't have said it out loud, right? I now announce that no one is allowed to say that Danxiong looks like a rabbit in the future. Let's beat up whoever says that Danxiong is a rabbit." Chu Yang hadn't even finished speaking when Xia Danxiong's face was already streaming with tears. With a boom, everyone burst into laughter. The laughter was too loud. A few rabbits scurried out of the bushes, fleeing in a sorry state. GMO shouted, "Look, it's Xia Danxiong's companions." Instantly the few of them laughed so hard that their bellies hurt. They instantly felt half of their fatigue disappear. Amidst the laughter, Chu Yang sensitively realized that something was wrong with Ao Shiyun. It was as if his body was heating up and turning red. His eyes, which were looking at the heavenly fire of nirvana in the distant sky, were also somewhat strange. "What's wrong with you?" Mo Chenji also noticed this. "Nothing." Ao Shiyun's eyes were full of uncertainty. "When I saw the heavenly fire of nirvana, the golden dragon bloodline in my body suddenly started to churn." Mo Chenji and Chu Yang exchanged a look. Both of them had the same guess in their hearts at the same time. Since ancient times, dragons and phoenixes were equally famous. Could it be that the awakening of the phoenix race also had an effect on the dragon race? When they were thousands of miles away, they didn't notice anything unusual with Ao Shiyun. But when they got closer, this was really somewhat incomprehensible. Mo Chenji's lips moved slightly as he sent a telepathic message to Chu Yang. "Act according to the situation. I reckon that this is a fluctuation of the bloodline and definitely not a true awakening. When the time comes, if anything happens, you and Duxing are the most powerful. You have to be prepared." Chu Yang nodded solemnly. He shot a look at Gu Duxing. Gu Duxing sat still and nodded slowly. After taking out the food, everyone wolfed it down and rested for a while before continuing on their journey. After another 2 days of continuous running, they finally got close to the area of the heavenly fire of nirvana. But like the others, they still waited 1,000 miles away and couldn't enter. Rui Badong didn't know of their arrival. In the heart of the heavenly fire of nirvana, Rui Badong was suffering an unprecedented torment. Rui Badong swore that he would never forget the pain this time for the rest of his life. Forcibly burning the bloodline in the body and activating the heavenly fire of nirvana before completely reaching the nirvana stage was an unprecedented taboo for the phoenix race. It was extremely likely that he would be burned into a wisp of smoke in this heavenly fire of nirvana. But Rui Badong had no other choice. He knew that if he didn't activate it, Dong Wushang and Mo Lei would definitely die. And Mo Qingwu would definitely be captured by the enemy. Whether it was for his brothers, for Mo Qingwu, or for Chu Yang's instructions, he couldn't just watch all of this happen. So Rui Badong activated it without hesitation. The first thing he did was to protect all that he had to protect. Then he launched the attack. Right now he could feel that his entire body, every pore, every muscle, every vein, every nerve, was emitting a raging inferno. And the fire that was originally burning in the outside world was also constantly entering his body. It was burning everything that could be burned. This feeling was really indescribable. It was like a person watching his own heart turn into smoke and then a little bit of flesh and blood appear in its original position and then grow bit by bit as it was burned. Nerves were constantly being burned, and then new nerves were being created. At this moment Rui Badong even wanted to sigh. "My left eye sees life, my right eye sees death. One foot is wandering in heaven, the other foot is wandering in hell." This was really like a damn poem, Rui Badong sighed. Their bodies were twisting. The heavenly fire of nirvana finally rushed into the blue sky. The spiritual energy within a radius of thousands of miles gathered like a storm, the four of them. At the same time, they were flooded and cleansed by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth over and over again. Everyone's body was completely transformed by the heavenly fire of nirvana. Dong Wuxiang and Imo Lei, or had already experienced it once. Knowing what to do now, they immediately sat down cross-legged and circulated their energy to absorb. Imo Qingwu looked curiously at the purple flames surrounding her. She felt that her body was constantly undergoing a rebirth, and for a moment she was actually a little lost. There was a feeling like she was dreaming again. Then she felt that her cultivation was increasing rapidly. A huge amount of spiritual energy of heaven and earth poured into her from the top of her head, from the soles of her feet, and from every pore on her body. Imo Qingwu couldn't help but close her eyes and circulate her energy. Immediately, she felt that the bottleneck from second-grade saint to first-grade supreme martial artist was actually already on the verge of collapsing. The birds in the sky were already densely packed with millions of them. In the distance, there were still large numbers of birds flying over with no regard for their lives. The aura of a king's arrival spread out mysteriously. In the world, all the birds went crazy. This time the momentum was much greater than the previous time. The boundless sky was filled with a kind of dense majesty, as if an ancient divine king was descending upon the world. Within a radius of 2,000 miles, the entire area was filled with birds. Yes, it was filled. But it was completely silent. All the birds stayed where they were quietly. Natural enemies were close to each other. The strong were indifferent. The weak didn't care at all. From time to time there would be rustling sounds. Some birds were squeezed down from the branches, which immediately attracted the angry glares of all the surrounding birds. All their eyes were conveying the same message. You actually dare to disturb the king's awakening, you deserve to die. After being squeezed down, under the glares of a flock of sparrows, a goshawk actually trembled all over, like a rooster that had lost a fight. Countless birds continued to fly over. They were no longer satisfied with the territory of 2,000 miles and were expanding outwards. The 7 Chu brothers smiled bitterly at each other at the boundary of 2,000 miles. The few of them had already been buried by the birds. Now the birds weren't afraid of people. They directly stood on the hair and shoulders of Chu Yang and the others. A few birds even burrowed into Chu Yang's neck and anxiously scurried back and forth on his back. This kind of experience was really amazing. Gradually, as they got closer, Chu Yang actually couldn't see Imo Tianji anymore. The space between the two of them had already been filled with birds flapping their wings. Luo Kadi's grumbling attracted the angry glares of countless birds. However, this fellow was rather unlucky. The big bird perched on top of his head seemed to have some digestive problems during this period and was very dispirited. After grabbing his hair for a while, it actually started to excrete one after another. Xia Danxiong quickly reached out and flicked his fingers, sealing Luo Kadi's meridians. Instantly, Second Master Luo couldn't move at all. He only felt something wet and slippery with warmth sliding down from the top of his head, into his neck, into his clothes, down his back and onto his butt. It was extremely tragic. Finally, after an unknown amount of time, a clear phoenix cry resounded through the sky. At the same time, an explosive wave of air suddenly spread out. That was the outburst of aura from several people breaking through at the same time. Countless birds flew into the air in joy and rushed towards the center of the mountain. Chu Yang was finally free. He was about to fly over when he suddenly heard a voice. He couldn't help but be dumbstruck. He heard a voice that was as pleasant as the sounds of nature. How amazing! In just these short 2 days, my cultivation has become a second-grade supreme martial artist. The voice was joyous but also carried an inexplicable sense of melancholy, sadness and a little worry. Chu Yang was stunned. Chapter 1387. Boundless spiritual energy spread out in all directions like tides. All the birds that came to worship felt the exhaustion from the long journey swept away at this moment. They were all full of energy and even their feathers were much brighter. Including Chu Yang and the rest, these few special birds also felt refreshed at once. Smart kids remember network super fast hands. A soft cry sounded. Dong Wuxiang, Imo Lei, and Imo Qingwu, who had already stood up and stopped cultivating, looked over in shock. They saw Rui Butong's face and neck red, desperately trying to suppress something. On his forehead, under the skin, there was a little bump slowly bulging. Instantly, it bulged out like a unicorn. Rui Butong was moaning in pain, some despair in his eyes. Dong Wuxiang and the rest were shocked. They didn't know what was going on at all. The consequences of Rui Budong forcefully activating nirvana finally erupted at this moment. The phoenix bloodline in his body gathered and rushed to his head. If he couldn't suppress it, then this bit of phoenix bloodline would break through the top of his head in the form of a true spirit and fly away. And Rui Budong would also fall into true destruction. Dong Wuxiang didn't have time to think. He floated over and reached out to press against the middle of Rui Budong's back. Pure vital energy surged into Rui Budong's body. Rui Budong obviously didn't have enough strength. Since that was the case, then he needed strength. Dong Wuxiang's incomparably intuitive brain played an important role at this moment. If it were an ordinary person, they definitely wouldn't be so rash. But with a slight delay, Rui Budong would be finished. Dong Wuxiang was the only one who did not even think before he charged forward. With the two of them working together, Rui Budong finally relaxed a little. That blood-red bump also stopped growing, but as time passed, it started to bulge out bit by bit again. Emole, and Emo Qingwu went forward at the same time. One of them put a hand on the left shoulder. One of them put a hand on the right shoulder. The power of the four of them started to fight with the mysterious power in Rui Budong's body. But the power of the Phoenix True Spirit was immense. After 6 hours, the four of them slowly couldn't suppress it anymore. At this moment, there was a clear cry. Chu Yang was the first to arrive. Once he saw this situation, he reached out his hand and placed it on the middle of Dong Wuxiang's back without thinking. Then Gu Duxing, Mo Tianji and the rest followed suit. The tribulation force of the Tribulation Sword Master gathered together and formed a powerful torrent, especially with the addition of Ao Shiyun. At this moment, Ao Shiyun only felt that his blood vessels were expanding. It was as if he could even hear the sound of the blood flowing through his body. It was like a young golden dragon. It shuttled through his body. In the palm of his hand, surging true essence crazily poured into Rui Budong's body. Rui Budong's expression finally relaxed a little. He could feel it. The Phoenix True Spirit bloodline. It was slowly retreating into his body. Finally, all of a sudden, a dragon's roar sounded, followed by a phoenix's cry. The silhouette of a golden dragon suddenly emerged from Ao Shiyun's body and soared into the clear sky. The boundless majesty of a king suddenly permeated between heaven and earth. The shadow of a phoenix suddenly rushed out from Rui Budong's body and soared into the sky in the blink of an eye. A dragon and a phoenix appeared in the sky at the same time. In an instant, within a radius of thousands of miles, be it humans or animals, birds or beasts, all kept quiet out of fear. At this moment, the brothers felt at the same time that the powerful resistance in Rui Budong's body suddenly disappeared. Then, like a trickle of water, it flowed back. For a moment, everyone's bodies felt warm and indescribably comfortable. Not only was the extreme output not depleted, but everyone had also taken a big step forward. In mid-air, the silhouette of the golden dragon soared and was very lively. However, the silhouette of the phoenix was slightly depressed. After a long time, the golden dragon suddenly disappeared. The phoenix looked up to the sky and let out a long cry. Suddenly, it flapped its wings and flew up. At this moment, the entire night sky was suddenly filled with colorful lights, as if hundreds of millions of fireworks were blooming at the same time. A majestic and beautiful bird with a long tail flapped its wings and flew up into the sky. At the same time, different types of birds followed closely behind and flew up. Only one of each type of bird appeared, slowly forming a formation in the air. It was actually a living bird, a total of thousands of different birds according to the different colors of their feathers, forming a huge phoenix. On the ground, hundreds of millions of birds lowered their heads at the same time. The silhouette of the phoenix seemed to be very satisfied. It nodded slowly and a surge of pure energy surged out again. It was poured into the bodies of these birds. Then the phoenix flew a circle in midair and circled around Rui Budong 3 times. It actually sighed in a very human-like manner. It spat out a mouthful of purple air and poured it into Rui Budong's body. It flapped its wings and flew up. This time it didn't look back. Finally, in the sky, the splendor once again spread out and filled the entire firmament. All the birds raised their heads and puffed out their chests in unison, letting out the loudest chirps. At this moment the sky shook and the earth shook. Every bird had a satisfied look on their faces. So what if one person got the phoenix blood? So what if 10 people got it? The heavens blessed the Phoenix Longevity Hall. Immortality was a legend. A faint sigh sounded. It seemed to be questioning, as if it was depressed, as if it was melancholy, as if it was a pity, and as if it was lamenting. But no matter what, The tradition of the Phoenix race had already changed since Rui Budong's first complete awakening. Whether it was the Nirvana heavenly fire or the secret techniques of the Phoenix race, they had always been enjoyed by one person alone. But Rui Budong had shared it with his brothers from the very beginning. The first time was the same. The second time was also the same. Whether it was a blessing or a curse, even the real spirit of the Phoenix in Rui Budong's body didn't know. Rui Budong finally opened his eyes. The first thing he did was to look at his hands nervously. He looked at his feet and then at his body. Then he cheered, "Wah! My hands didn't turn into claws. My feet didn't turn into claws. My body didn't grow feathers. I'm still a human, not a bird. Wah!" This fellow already had the awareness of transforming into a phoenix in the land of Nirvana just now. After all, those countless silhouettes came from his consciousness. Naturally, he had thought that he had transformed. Just when he was extremely nervous, he was pleasantly surprised to see that he was still a human. It was really indescribable. The brothers surrounded Rui Budong, laughing and jumping. Luo Kadi and GMO rushed up. One of them pressed down on his head while the other punched him in the stomach. Rui Budong let out a loud cry. He was already lying on the ground. Luo Kadi cheered and sat on him. Then the brothers started to stack on top of each other. Rui Budong screamed, "Spare me! Spare me, big brothers! Why are you here? Fuck, who is this? Who is this? What a fucking stinky ass." Luo Kadi had been pooped all over by a diarrhea bird and hadn't had time to clean himself. Now Rui Budong, the king of birds, had enjoyed more than half of all the smells. While they were laughing, the surrounding birds had already started to disperse. Jianghu had already escaped at the first moment. Then she stood quietly under a tree and looked over with a smile. There was a hint of nervousness and uneasiness in her smile. There was also a strong desire. She forced herself to be calm, but she couldn't control herself. Chu Yang and Jianghu found it strange at the same time. Logically speaking, Jianghu should have seen Chu Yang. She had always flown up and jumped into his arms, acting coquettishly. Looking for protection and pampering as if she had been wronged. Why was it this time? Was it completely different? Chu Yang looked at Jianghu standing quietly and softly under the tree, looking at him just like that. Suddenly, there was an incomparably familiar feeling in his heart. This was just like in his previous life. Every time he left her, she would stand under the tree and send him off like this. Whether it was her charm, expression or emotions, it was almost exactly the same. Huge waves of emotions suddenly surged in Chu Yang's heart. If Jianghu was still as innocent and cute as before, Chu Yang would have already flown up and hugged her tenderly. But now, under such a familiar gaze, Chu Yang actually became timid and didn't dare to go forward. It was as if the one standing in front of him was the Jianghu from his previous life that he had wronged, felt guilty about, stayed by his side in life and death, and had no regrets even in death, and not this tender little girl in this life. Jianghu was the first to react. He looked at Chu Yang strangely, surprised at Chu Yang's reaction at this moment. But then he was shocked by the huge surprise of seeing his sister again. Controlling his heart, he rushed up happily. "Little Wu. Little sister." He opened his arms to hug her. Jianghu's eyes welled up with tears. Her small face became red, but she shrank back a little and took a step back. Jianghu opened his arms and suddenly stopped like this. His face also became a little stiff. There was uncertainty on his sister's face. There was also some alienation and some hostility in her eyes. Suddenly he felt a stab of pain. Why was it like this? "Little Wu?" Jianghu asked with some heartache. "What's wrong with you?" Jianghu looked at him with some unfamiliarity and some longing. She said, "Is it second brother?" At this moment, Jianghu suddenly mixed reality and dream. She didn't know why, but Jianghu had a feeling that the things in the dream were real. But clearly her life wasn't like this. This contradiction between reality and dream, when she saw Chu Yang and Jianghu at this moment, conflicted to the extreme. Her mind was a mess. Then, after a long time, she remembered that on the way to the far north wastelands, second brother had once explained to her what had happened back then. Her confused eyes slowly regained clarity. Yes, second brother loved her. In the dream, she didn't seem to have given him a chance to explain, right? Jianghu nodded vigorously. It's second brother. Why are you? What's wrong with you?" Jianghu, who had always been wise, was so anxious at this moment that the tip of his nose was sweating. He shouted, "Chu Yang, come here and take a look. What's wrong with little Wu?" Chu Yang walked over slowly. At this moment he felt the excitement in his heart. With every step he took, that feeling in his heart became a little clearer. Suddenly, his heart surged and his face turned red. Finally he came in front of Mo Qingwu. He met this pair of clear black and white eyes and looked at them. Their eyes met. Mo Qingwu's eyes clearly had a trace of avoidance and grievance. Chu Yang asked softly and carefully, "Is it little Wu? Or Qingwu?" His voice was very soft. In fact, it was so soft that it seemed as if he was afraid of waking up a dream. However, his voice contained a deep affection that could overturn rivers and seas. In fact, even Mo Tianji could clearly hear it. After much effort, a chapter was finally out. This chapter was really difficult to write. I originally wanted to write it quickly and then hurry home to celebrate the new year. But when I wrote this confusing plot, it gave me a headache. I've been writing for 4 hours until now. I'm going home now. When I come back tonight I'll write again. But even if there's an update, it may be past midnight. Everyone doesn't have to wait. Let's read it together tomorrow. G. Chapter 1388. Chu Yang asked cautiously with incomparable apprehension, "Are you Xiaowu or Qingwu?" This sentence made the master of calculation and manipulation Mo Tianji dizzy. In an instant, this wise man who was ranked in the top 3 in the heavenly layer, was in a state of confusion. Mo Tianji didn't understand what this sentence meant. Whether it was Xiaowu or Qingwu, weren't they both my sisters? For Chu Yang to ask this question, is he out of his mind? Or is he out of his mind? However, Mo Qingwu clearly understood the words that Mo Tianji did not understand. Mo Qingwu's eyes became hazy. Her white teeth bit her lips. Her lips trembled and turned white. She said, "Wasn't that a dream?" Her long eyelashes fluttered like a startled deer. Chu Yang was a little agitated. He stepped forward and said, "Yes, that was a dream." At this moment, his heart was surging. A sour feeling rose from the bottom of his heart and spread throughout his body. He knew the crux of Mo Qingwu's problem. Since he left, Mo Qingwu must have had that strange dream every day. But now she had no one to talk to and no one to comfort her. This was a kind of mental disorder caused by the repeated dreams. It caused her personality to evolve towards the memories of her previous life. But it wasn't the real awakening of the memories of her previous life. Otherwise, Mo Qingwu wouldn't have reacted like this. He thought about how Mo Qingwu had to bear that heart-wrenching dream all by herself. That kind of pressure was as heavy as a mountain. That experience was filled with sorrow and despair. How could a little girl like her be able to bear it? Chu Yang's heart was suddenly filled with heartache. That was a dream. Mo Qingwu's eyes reddened. She bit her lips and said sadly, "But you were so fierce. You didn't want me anymore. In your eyes, I'm not even as pretty as a sword." These words finally restored some of Xiao Wu's tone and image in this life. Chu Yang took a breath and said gently, "Silly. Do you know? Dreams were all illusory. Furthermore, dreams and reality were absolute opposites. In dreams, the worse I treat you, the better I treat you in reality." Mo Qingwu's eyes lit up. She finally couldn't hold back her joy and said, "Really? Really?" Chu Yang said with certainty. Mo Qingwu's small nose bridge wrinkled. Then her eyes turned into crescents and she smiled happily. She tilted her head and wanted to act coquettishly. But she felt that her mood had changed too quickly and she wasn't used to it. So she pretended to be angry and said, "Humph humph, humph humph humph, humph 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 humph." Although Chu Yang still had some worries in his heart, he was temporarily relieved. He smiled and said, "What are you snorting for? Have I turned into a piglet?" Mo Qingwu rolled her eyes and said angrily, "You're the piggy." Chu Yang said, "Only a piglet would humph." Mo Qingwu unhappily wrinkled her nose and snorted twice. Suddenly he frowned and said suspiciously, "But you just asked me. You're Xiaowu. Or Qingwu." The little girl recalled the dream again. In her dream, Chu Yang had always called her Qingwu. The little girl began to let her imagination run wild again. How could Chu Yang give her a chance to go back? He immediately put on a straight face. "Who is Xiaowu?" Mo Qingwu replied in a daze, "Of course it's me." Chu Yang continued to ask, "Who is Qingwu?" Mo Qingwu, "Of course it's me too." Humph humph humph. Chu Yang snorted twice and winked. "Then are you Xiaowu or Qingwu?" The pitiful little girl was immediately led into a ditch by these two sentences. She said in a silly manner, "Xiaowu is me, Qingwu is also me." Suddenly she jumped up and pounded Chu Yang's chest with her small pink fists. She said coquettishly, "Big brother Chu Yang, you're so naughty. You're really naughty. Xiaowu hates you to death. Chu Yang hugged the warm and fragrant jade in his arms. Instantly, a huge rock in his heart was lifted. It was a false alarm. He laughed happily. You're stupid, you can't blame me for going in circles. Mo Qingwu twisted her body but refused to comply. At this moment, the naivety and innocence returned to Xiao Wu. Chu Yang heaved a sigh of relief. Chu Yang put on a straight face and said, "Where's the greeting gift?" The little girl snorted unhappily. Then she happily pouted her red lips and pecked Chu Yang's right cheek. Chu Yang moaned happily. He tilted his head and moved his left cheek closer. Here. Munch. The little girl took another bite. Chu Yang pouted. Here? Mo Qingwu giggled and struggled out of his arms. She scrubbed her face and hid to one side. She complained, "Big brother Chu Yang is a big hooligan." Chu Yang smiled dizzily. Mo Tianji's eyes reddened as he watched. He angrily took 2 steps forward and placed himself between Chu Yang and Mo Qingwu. He slanted his nose and narrowed his eyes as he said furiously, "What a scandal!" Chu Yang reached out and pushed him to one side. He said, "What does it have to do with you? Go away." Mo Tianji was at his wit's end. He walked to his sister and advised in a low voice, "Little Wu, you're still young. Getting involved in these things too early will be detrimental to your growth. Also, as a girl you have to be reserved. Reserved, understand? This concerns your status in the future?" Mo Qingwu opened her round eyes and said, "Getting involved in these things too early? What are these things here?" Mo Tianji's face darkened. He carefully chose his words and said, "For example, love between a man and a woman?" Mo Qingwu asked, "What is love between a man and a woman?" Mo Tianji opened his mouth wide. "This." Mo Qingwu persevered. "Second brother, explain it." Mo Tianji's eyes widened. "Second brother, explain it?" Mo Qingwu acted coquettishly. "I want to have sex with big brother Chu Yang but I can't." Mo Tianji's face darkened. He shouted in grief and indignation, "No!" "Why not?" Mo Qingwu asked bravely. "Explain it clearly. This matter, this. Mo Tianji tragically stuttered under his sister's questioning. Mo Tianji, who had always been wise, eloquent, strategizing, and the master of calculation and manipulation, in front of his sister's pure and flawless eyes. That intense thirst for knowledge in her eyes? He was utterly defeated. He couldn't help but look at Chu Yang for help. Chu Yang was cursing in his heart. "This bastard is really a jerk. Always ruining my plans. This is intolerable." Seeing that Mo Tianji was asking for help, Chu Yang's eyes turned and he asked humbly, "Yes, brother Tianji. I would also like to ask, what exactly is love between a man and a woman that you mentioned? Does it need to be in a specific environment, or does it need some other conditions?" "Ayaya. Tianji, oh Tianji, your thoughts aren't impure, right? Let me tell you, Xiao Wu and I won't listen to those shameless things, even if it's something like taking off one's clothes. Don't you think so, Xiao Wu?" Mo Qingwu nodded vigorously. She fully supported brother Chu Yang's words. "Brother Chu Yang is absolutely right. Second brother, you can't talk about those shameless things. Second brother, hurry up and explain." Mo Tianji hugged his head and squatted on the ground. He was speechless for a long time. "Oh God. Just let me die." Chu Yang had finally vented his resentment. For a moment he felt elated. "Motherfucker, even you, Mo Tianji, have such a day. You deserve it." Mo Tianji thought for a long time. Finally he exploded. He pulled Mo Qingwu to one side and said earnestly in a low voice, "Xiao Wu. There are some things that I can't tell you so early but I have to remind you. Do you know that you are a girl?" Mo Tianji gritted his teeth and said patiently, "Don't you like Chu Yang? Then let me tell you a secret. If you want Chu Yang to always remember you, you have to make him unable to eat you forever. For example, you have to loosen the reins in order to grasp them better. Or, you have to be hazy like an illusion, or, simply become an iceberg. Arouse his desire to conquer you but don't let him conquer you. Just leave him hanging like this." Mo Tianji looked at Chu Yang maliciously and said fiercely in his heart, "Leave him hanging for thousands of years." Mo Qingwu said unhappily, "I don't want to listen to you. You haven't even found a wife. This is the conclusion of being kicked by girls too many times, right?" Mo Tianji was speechless. Mo Qingwu said excitedly, "But the first 2 sentences are somewhat useful, but I don't really understand." Mo Tianji was shocked. "What don't you understand? Second brother will explain it to you in detail." "What is, unable to eat me?" Mo Qingwu asked tirelessly, "Is brother Chu Yang going to eat me?" Mo Tianji opened his mouth. What is desire to conquer? The little girl tilted her head and looked confused. Mo Tianji opened his eyes wide. At this moment, the master of calculation and manipulation Mo Tianji simply wanted to dig a hole in the ground and bury himself quickly. He could explain these things to anyone. If it was to Gu Du Xing, GMO Luo Kadi and the others, Mo Tianji could even talk loudly and enthusiastically all night long until those guys' eyes showed a wolf-like look. Only then would he stop. But only to his own sister. He couldn't explain it. On the side, Chuyang was laughing so hard that his stomach was cramping. But he also felt a little strange in his heart. Since Mo Qingwu keeps dreaming, it's impossible that she doesn't even know these things. Even if she hasn't heard of it in reality, she has experienced it in her dreams. Just as Mo Tianji was in a difficult situation, Mo Qingwu suddenly blushed and scolded hatefully, "Second brother, I really don't know what you're thinking about every day. In my opinion, among all of you brothers, you're the most impure. You're the most rogue. And you still have the face to talk about others." Mo Tianji was dumbfounded. How am I impure? How am I a rogue? Brother Chuyang has been with you all this time, did he learn bad things from you? Mo Qingwu snorted and walked angrily to Chuyang with her head tilted. She grabbed his arm and said, "Brother Chuyang, let's go. Let's stay far away from him. In the future you're not allowed to learn from him." Chuyang nodded like he was pounding garlic. "I definitely won't learn from him." Mo Qingwu heaved a sigh of relief. Second brother is really too hateful. Chuyang hurriedly added insult to injury. "Actually, you've misunderstood. Your second brother is still very good. He often invites me to drink into some elegant places to listen to music and drink tea, see beautiful women and so on. But I've always just listened. Although your second brother can't be found at those places every time he goes to, I'm really curious about where he goes. Besides, he has so many friends at those places and all of them are very beautiful." Mo Qingwu's eyes spat fire. What a good Mo Tianji. Humph. Mo Tianji was devastated. "Chuyang. I'll fight it out with you. Cough, sorry for the late update. G. Chapter 1389. The impression that Mo Tianji had just restored in his sister's heart was completely destroyed. She saw how obedient her younger sister was to Chuyang. Chuyang was speaking on one side, and Mo Qingwu was looking at her with an extremely resentful expression on the other side. Mo Tianji's blood boiled and he almost spat out mouthfuls of blood. Smart kids remember network super fast hands. Was there any justice in this world? Qingwu, you don't know. Tianji is really a good person. Don't misunderstand him. Chuyang continued to work hard, looking as if he would never give up until he suppressed Mo Tianji to hell and made him unable to make a comeback. Tianji has been chivalrous all this while and has indeed done many heroic deeds of saving beauties. The number of women that he has saved is really uncountable. He's a good man. Mo Qingwu was so angry that her nose was crooked. Brother Chuyang, you believe this? Let me ask you, were all the girls that second brother saved very beautiful? Chuyang was startled. He thought seriously and said, I didn't pay attention to this. In my heart, who can be more beautiful than Xiao Wu? But now that you mention it, it does seem to be the case. Mo Qingwu's face was full of satisfaction and happiness. She looked down on Mo Tianji and said, yes, if they were not beautiful, why would he save them? He obviously has an ulterior motive. Chuyang was enlightened. I see. I really didn't pay attention. At this time someone said, don't mention this. Mo Tianji keeps to himself every time and doesn't let us interfere. It's fine if it's me, but Luo Kadi is still single. He has no chance at all. Sai Mo Tianji is having more and more concubines. It was GMO. At the side, Luo Kadi wanted to cry but had no tears. This is nothing. But Mo Tianji goes to the brothel every day. It's really a little bad. For a moment, Mo Tianji was criticized by everyone. It was as if he had 100 mouths all over his body. He couldn't explain it. Ao Xie Yun was the only one who didn't participate in the attack. He looked at him sympathetically and said, Tianji. Actually, I knew that you were not this kind of person. Mo Tianji said with grief and indignation, get lost. Ao Xie Yun was furious. He said, you go to the brothel every day and you still think you are right. The group of brothers immediately poured all the shit in the world onto Mo Tianji. And when he opened his mouth, he would definitely say, actually, Tianji is a good person, for example. Mo Tianji was so angry that he almost had a heart attack. Emo Qingwu was also so angry that one Buddha was born, and two Buddhas rose to the heavens. She angrily pulled Chu Yang and walked in front. Gmo Luo Kudi Rue Butong, and the others giggled as they swarmed forward. They followed behind Emo Tianji. Each of them felt refreshed. They had been oppressed by Emo Tianji for so long that they couldn't turn the tables. But they could finally hold their heads up high today. Seeing Emo Tianji's dark face, the little brothers felt as if they had taken a cold bath on a hot day. Their bodies felt warm from head to toe. It was Emo Tianji's image. This time he had completely ruined it in front of his younger sister. Moreover, Chu Yang's great image had been thoroughly established after Emo Tianji's image had collapsed. Under Chu Yang's lead, everyone advanced towards the flat mountain ridge. Everyone knew in their hearts that they had to get rid of the traitor in the Chu clan. It was an urgent matter. As for other matters, there was no harm in dragging it out. Along the way, Emo Tianji looked for countless opportunities to explain to his younger sister. Emo Qingwu raised her nose and tilted her face. She ignored him. Along the way, the master of calculation and manipulation, Emo Tianji, was so anxious that he almost had blisters on his mouth. Finally, one morning, Emo Qingwu came to Emo Tianji guiltily. "I'm sorry, second brother. I misunderstood you again." Emo Tianji felt as if he had been pardoned. He immediately laughed and waved his hand. "It's not your fault. It's all Chu Yang's fault." Emo Qingwu was furious. "The truth was told to me by brother Chu Yang last night. You're actually slandering him now." She turned around and left. Emo Tianji was dumbfounded. Chu Yang, who was at the side, laughed so hard that he almost fell down. However, Emo Qingwu's two misunderstandings towards Emo Tianji had been completely resolved by Chu Yang's method. Moreover, the anger that Emo Qingwu had towards Emo Tianji in her two lives had also unknowingly eliminated all her resentment towards him. Thinking of the tragedy of Emo Qingwu's previous life, Chu Yang still had some residual anger. But, for Qingwu, Chu Yang still deliberately planned to completely eliminate her resentment towards her family complex. Next was the real highlight, the entanglement between him and Emo Qingwu in her previous life. Although Emo Qingwu had not completely recovered her memories of her previous life, Chu Yang could tell from her repeated dreams that Emo Qingwu's memories had already reached a critical point. Maybe she would really recover her memories at some point. From there, he would know that it was not a dream. At that time he would face an unprecedented impact. And that day would not be too far away. The group sped all the way, ignoring the crowd that gathered in all directions. They directly broke through the crowd. Soon the flat mountain ridge was in sight. Then they sped up like a gust of wind and entered the Chu clan's courtyard. Chu Feiling and Yang Ruolan were missing their son. When they suddenly heard that he was back, they were surprised and immediately came out to welcome him. The whole family also came out to welcome him. When the whole family met, the atmosphere was warm and lively. At night, after the family banquet, Chu Yang immediately discussed with his parents. In addition, old master Chu Xiongcheng was also present. "Traitor?" Chu Feiling was shocked. He and Yang Ruolan looked at each other. Yang Ruolan's face was a little pale. She thought of the existence of a traitor and the danger to the clan. This time it was Dong Wushang Rui Badong Emo Lei, and Emo Qingwu. Then what about the next time? Would it be her son Chu Yang? They must be eliminated. Yang Ruolan's appearance at this moment was like an old hen frantically protecting her chick in the face of a fox's threat. All the feathers on her body stood up. Yang Ruolan would rather risk everything than let anything happen to her son, who she had lost and gone through all kinds of hardships to find back her son. Even if her son's cultivation had surpassed hers in her eyes, her son would always be the same as the baby in her arms back then. Mother will use the most vicious means in the world to destroy any threat to your son. "Who is the traitor?" Chu Feiling asked. Chu Yang was silent for a while and said, "I only need to ask one person. Then I will know all the movements of the traitor. But by then, I'm afraid. No matter who the traitor is. Since he has done such a thing, he is our Chu clan's mortal enemy." Old Master Chu Xiongqing said, "The Elder Master has already passed the power of life and death to you. You can do whatever you want." Chu Yang was silent for a while and nodded. In the dark night, Chu Yang came to the residence of the Moon Breeze couple. Before he knocked on the door was already open. Yu Lingxue, dressed in a snow-white robe, stood tall in the courtyard as if he was specially waiting for him. "I know. As long as you know, you will come." Yu Lingxue's every movement was as suave as usual. Chu Yang smiled and said, Greetings, Elder. Yu Lingxue laughed and let him in. Has Elder's body fully recovered? Chu Yang sat down. He asked. It has already recovered to its original state. But during this period of time I stopped practicing. Yu Lingxue smiled. Yes. Chu Yang thought for a while and took out 2 bottles made of purple crystal jade core. He placed them on the table. He said, I know what Elder is thinking. This bottle is the spiritual spring. It has evolved compared to the previous one. After consumption, it can adjust the body's vitality to the highest level. He smiled and said, as for the evolution of the spring of life, I only need to find one more person to catalyze it. By then, the wishes of both elders will be fulfilled. Upon hearing this, Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro, who was in the inner chamber, were overjoyed. Feng Yuro came out like a gust of wind. Her face was a little red, but she still thanked Chu Yang. Thank you, little brother. Yu Lingxue laughed and said, then what's in the other bottle? Chu Yang said, that's half a kilogram of celestial wine. Celestial wine? Yu Lingxue asked with a frown. Yes. Chu Yang said, I got this by chance. This bottle is enough to increase the cultivation of an ordinary person by 2,000 years. Since both elders don't plan to practice now, it is also a good choice to keep it for the cleansing of the child's marrow in the future. It was more than just a good choice. The Moon Breeze couple was so overjoyed that they were a little stunned. They didn't have a child yet, but both of them were already full of hope. They had already started planning for the child's education, safety and other aspects in the future. Now that they had gotten this from Chu Yang, it was like a big pie falling from the sky. They could guarantee that their child would be an expert the moment he was born. As long as his aptitude wasn't too bad, with this bottle of celestial wine as a foundation, it would be easy for him to reach the peak of upper-grade supreme martial artist in the future. Feng Yuro was so excited that tears welled up in her eyes. She thanked Chu Yang deeply and kept it carefully. It's a little early now. Chu Yang was a little embarrassed. He said, but I'm afraid that I won't have this anymore by then. So, I'd better leave some here first in case I can't take it out when the time comes. It'll be very awkward, ha. Both the Moon Breeze couple understood what Chu Yang meant. They also smiled, somewhat rejoicing. Yes, what Chu Yang said was absolutely right. It was impossible to have too many of such things. And as the Tribulation Sword Master, Chu Yang had many brothers. His need for such things was even greater. Besides, he had a big clan. Therefore, what Chu Yang said about, I'm afraid that I won't have it anymore by then, was the absolute truth. Chu Yang took out another 3 pieces of souls of the purple crystal and placed them on the table. He pushed them over lightly. One each for the 2 seniors and the future baby. Consider it my greeting gift. This time the Moon Breeze couple really got a shock. Ever since he came in, the 3 items that Chu Yang took out were each more shocking than the last. In their more than 10,000 years of life, the Moon Breeze couple had never seen or heard of these 3 items before. The last item was actually the legendary soul of the purple crystal. Begging for monthly votes, I'm going to write the second update. Today is the 24th day of the 12th lunar month. Thinking that the spring festival is coming, my heart is filled with excitement. Suddenly, I felt poetic and wrote a poem. The spring festival is like a beautiful girl, walking all the way to me as she walks as she takes off her clothes when she's in front of me. Chapter 1390. Even someone as powerful as Yu Lingxue was also shocked by Chu Yang's generosity. Smart kids remember network super fast hands looking at the soul of the purple crystal in front of him. Yu Lingxue only felt his mouth dry up. He was stunned for a moment before he came back to his senses. He let Feng Yuro keep it and said with a smile, You're still young, surely this isn't a simple greeting gift? Chu Yang smiled slightly. It's not impossible to say that it's gratitude. After all, if not for the 2 of you, the Chu clan would have been destroyed thousands of times already. The 2 of you have contributed greatly to our survival till now. What Chu Yang said was the truth. If not for the Moon Breeze couple and Wu Jueqing, judging from Chu Yang's misdeeds outside, the Chu clan would have been long gone. Of course, if not for the fact that he had arranged for these 3 great gods to stay here, Chu Yang wouldn't have dared to be so impudent outside. After all, there was a huge difference between having worries and not having any at all. After Wu Jueqing left, the entire Chu clan was protected by the Moon Breeze couple. It was foolproof. Yu Lingxue said softly, although we can't directly participate in the war to pacify the world, we can still look after the clan for you. His smile flashed with sharp sword intent. Of course, when it comes to the last step, we won't sit back and watch. I believe that the other side won't sit back and watch either. Chu Yang completely understood what he meant. The last step would be the final battle. When that time came, they would go up against all the supreme experts and law enforcement officers of the big clans that had been accumulated over tens of thousands of years. That battle was the true battle that set the mountains and rivers. A battle to settle the world. Yu Lingxue smiled. If it's because of these, I'm ashamed. We're just two patients who are lazing around here waiting for treatment. The three of them laughed at the same time. There's one more thing that I hope you can help me with today, said Chu Yang. As if guessing what he was going to say, Yu Lingxue said, Speak. Traitor, said Chu Yang softly. Yu Lingxue smiled amusedly. Why did you come to look for me? Chu Yang chuckled. The Chu clan has been established for quite some time, but there are no experts in the clan. Not to mention there are no super experts. Therefore, even if there are traitors, they're stuck with their original methods. These people. Chu Yang smiled. With a mid-grade supreme martial artist here, as long as he's not in closed-door training, he won't be able to do anything. If that's the case, there won't be any movement within 1,000 miles that can be hidden from us. He narrowed his eyes and smiled. Senior is an upright person who knows how to repay kindness. Naturally, you would pay more attention to the movements of the Chu clan. Under such circumstances, it would be impossible for the traitor to hide from you. Yu Lingxue smiled. What Chu Yang said was absolutely right. Yu Lingxue had always been somewhat grateful towards Chu Yang. What's more, the couple's greatest wish depended on Chu Yang. How could he not care about the Chu clan? Under such circumstances, it would be strange if they didn't discover the traitor's actions. But, that person's identity. Very awkward. Yu Lingxue smiled. Chu Yang frowned. It's your second uncle's widow. A cold glint flashed across Yu Lingxue's eyes. If it were anyone else, I would have dealt with them on the spot. Since it's her, it's not convenient for an outsider like me to make a move. Chu Yang's brows furrowed tightly. Chu Feilong's widow, Madame Wei. Yu Lingxue said indifferently, other than reminding Dong Wuxiang before he set off, I didn't do anything else. There was a glint in his eyes. The encounter of tribulations is a training that will definitely happen. It's not good for me to interfere. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. Yet another person who was influenced by the theory of tribulations never dying. And this person was actually Yu Lingxue. How can one grow without experiencing wind and rain? Yu Lingxue said softly, a tree grows after a lifetime of wind and rain. A person who grows after a lifetime of bloodshed is a strong person. Chu Yang nodded. If there's time, I would like to meet this brother of yours. Yu Lingxue smiled. Chu Yang bade farewell to Moon Breeze and returned. His mind was churning intensely. Madame Wei was Chu Feilong's first wife and gave birth to 3 sons for him. When Chu Feilong died, Madame Wei fainted from grief. But after that she didn't do anything. She was actually the traitor? Chu Yang suddenly recalled that his fourth uncle, Chu Fian, once sighed and said, Actually, your second uncle used to be a very good person. The 4 of us had always been very united. However, ever since your second uncle met your second aunt, things changed. Especially after they got married, many of your second uncle's actions were very incomprehensible. Your second uncle met Madame Wei outside when he was roaming the martial world, and it was from then on that your second uncle really became incomprehensible. And then he became more and more serious. As for your matter, it's hard to say. Back then Chu Fian's words were very vague, and what he said was extracted from the conversation of the whole night. At that time he didn't feel anything. But now that Madame Wei was exposed as a traitor, Chu Yang realized that Chu Fian had revealed a lot of important information to him. Madame Wei? Chu Xiongqing's face changed color. Are you sure? It was Elder Yu Lingxue who had been observing the Chu clan with his divine sense and discovered it. Chu Yang said, during this period Madame Wei went out several times. Twice she released carrier pigeons outside the flat mountain ridge. The last time she had a secret talk with someone in a tea house in the flat mountain ridge. After that, this attack happened. Chu Yang said with certainty, so Madame Wei is a traitor. There's no doubt about this. But what's worth thinking about is, if she's a traitor, which side does she belong to? Hearing that this matter was confirmed by Yu Lingxue, old Master Chu was instantly speechless. If he still didn't believe Yu Lingxue's judgment, then, there was no one else in this world worthy of his trust. Is there a need to guess? Old Master Chu blew his beard and glared. The interception was done by the Shao clan. Of course, Madame Wei is from the Shao clan. Not necessarily. Chu Yang shook his head slowly. At that time Chu Feilong colluded with the Yi clan. All along, I didn't see any contact between him and the Shao clan. Why did Chu Feilong die? Instead of contacting the Yi clan, Madame Wei contacted the Shao clan first? Chu Yang said in a low voice. This is a big point of suspicion. Hearing this, Old Master Chu's expression changed. Firstly, speaking of Chu Feilong, Old Master Chu was still a little sad after all. Secondly, there were two dominant clans eyeing covetously at the same time. This pressure was also earth-shattering. How do you plan to deal with this matter? Old Master Chu asked. I'm thinking about it. Chu Yang said, but regarding the outcome, it depends on your opinion. Old Master Chu hesitated for a while, stood up and paced with his hands behind his back. After a long time he finally said, if she doesn't repent, then let them reunite. After Old Master finished this sentence, he left in a huff. But from the low tone of the last sentence, Chu Yang could still tell that Old Master was sad. His second son had become a traitor. He died miserably. His two grandsons also died along with him. Now even his widow was also going to. If all of them were really gone, then those that remained in this world. Only his grandson Chu Tingyun was left. At such a young age he lost his parents and brothers. And all of them died in the hands of his own family. I really don't know how this 12 or 13-year-old kid can survive. Would he go mad with hatred because of this and walk down the same path as his father, Chu Feilong? Chu Feiling and Yang Rulin were also a little dumbfounded. Chu Yang came out with a lot on his mind and went to look for Mo Tianji. Such an intricate and complicated matter, leaving it to this fellow would definitely bring out the best in each other. But on the way he met Yang Bao. Old Master Yang had specially waited here for a long time to look for Chu Yang. What are you busy with every day? You come and go like a ghost. Come, follow me, I have something to tell you. Old Master Yang pulled Chu Yang's collar and walked away. Slow down, I'm almost out of breath. Chu Yang was puzzled. Why was Old Master looking for him? He was prepared to pay a visit tomorrow, but he didn't expect Old Master Yang to come knocking on his door. Old Master Yang dragged Chu Yang into a room where Grandma Yang was waiting for him. When she saw Chu Yang, she first praised him like a precious baby before it was Old Master Yang's turn to talk about serious matters. Old Master Yang asked very mysteriously and seriously, "What's your cultivation level now?" Chu Yang rubbed his nose. "I think I'm a third-grade supreme martial artist." Old Master Yang didn't expect his nephew to already be a supreme martial artist. He was stunned. After a long while, he clapped his hands and said, "Damn it! So strong. You're so damn fast." Chu Yang was speechless. A walking stick smashed down from behind Old Master Yang. Old Mistress Yang smashed Old Master Yang to the ground with her walking stick and scolded, "Damn it! How dare you scold me?" Old Master Yang got up from the ground and patted the dust off as if nothing had happened. He said angrily, "I'm talking about serious matters with my grandson, don't interrupt." Old Mistress Yang snorted and said, "Don't scold people when you're talking about serious matters. If you dare to scold me indirectly again, I'll let you know how powerful I am." Old Master Yang grimaced and didn't dare to retort. He turned to Chu Yang and said, "Damn it." Chu Yang was speechless. He had never seen someone like this. Scolding my grandma and now my grandma. What's wrong with me? Then Old Master Yang started to talk about serious matters. It's about time. You can also ask the Moon Breeze couple for help at critical moments. Besides, it can't be delayed any longer. Why? Asked Chu Yang. Do you still remember what I told you about the Aspen Valley Purple Crystal Mine? Asked Old Master Yang. Then he said, "It's okay if you haven't heard of it. It's not too late for me to tell you now." Chu Yang was speechless. Old Master Yang took in a deep breath and said, "When we discovered it, we thought that it was just a small purple crystal mine, so no one paid much attention to it. But until last year we suddenly dug out something from it. Then this old man immediately felt that something was wrong. If that's really the case, then this place isn't something that a mere Yang clan can occupy." "What is it?" Chu Yang felt his heart beating faster for some reason, as if an earth-shattering thing was about to be revealed to him. This feeling made even Chu Yang himself feel rather baffled. Chapter 1391. Along with Chu Yang's agitation, the sword spirit in the tribulation space also became agitated. Smart kids remember network super-fast hands. Both of them were a little puzzled. What exactly was it that could make a sword master and a sword spirit so agitated? And it was just a vague feeling, Yet it was already like this? Chu Yang's mouth became dry. He said, "Grandfather, did you discover a top-grade heavenly treasure?" Yang Bao glared and said angrily, "If it was just a heavenly treasure, wouldn't it be fine if I secretly kept it myself? Why would my whole family have to seek refuge in your place in such a sorry state?" The old master finally admitted that he had come to the Chu clan to seek refuge. Chu Yang said, "Then what did you find? Why are you being so cautious?" This time Yang Bao didn't continue speaking. Instead he sighed rather sadly. Looking up at the ceiling he said, "At that time we discovered a small amount of purple crystals there, and the Yang clan took root there. Poplar Valley got its name from that. For hundreds of years, it had always been intermittent. Sometimes they couldn't dig up a single purple crystal for 3 to 5 months. Other times they had continuous harvests. But this bit of harvest was really negligible to the big clans. So even though the Shao clan knew about it, they were full of ridicule and disdain towards the Yang clan's mining. Chu Yang thought, with the Shao clan's wealth, they naturally wouldn't care about such a small purple crystal mine. Among the big clans, the amount of purple crystal mined in a day by any one of them was probably equivalent to 10 years of mining by the Yang clan. It was normal that they didn't care about it. If the Shao clan actually went to war over such a small purple crystal mine, that would be idiotic. And it would also appear that they didn't have any tolerance for others. It would be extremely detrimental to the Shao clan's rule in the southeast. But the Yang clan relied on this small purple crystal mine to develop gradually. Even though it was definitely impossible for them to become a big clan, it was enough to dominate a region. The importance of these purple crystals. Chu Yang thought of the vast amount of purple crystals stored in his space. He couldn't help but feel like, "I'm a rich man." Until one day there were no purple crystals for 3 consecutive months. I just wanted to give up on this purple crystal mine. It was really like chicken ribs, tasteless but a pity to throw it away. But at this moment, he dug out a huge strange purple crystal origin stone. This purple crystal origin stone actually couldn't be ground. At that time I wanted to auction it off and stop mining the purple crystal mine. I wanted the Yang clan to live a peaceful life. But after I sold it I couldn't bear to part with it. After that, the buyer was unable to open the stone. The buyer then put it up for auction. I don't know why, but I actually bought it back. Master Yang's face turned slightly red. At the side, old Mistress Yang spat in disdain and scolded, "Idiot! He sold it for 200 purple crystals and actually spent 300 purple crystals to buy it back. How can there be such an idiot in the world?" Chu Yang was also dumbfounded. What a weirdo. It was definitely rare in the world. He couldn't bear to sell it, but when someone else sold it he bought it back. Not only did he not make any money, but he also did not make any money. Instead he lost 100 purple crystals. This kind of thing was indeed not something an ordinary person could do. Chu Yang suddenly gasped in amazement at the strength of his grandfather. Then a brother of mine happened to be there. We joined forces and borrowed the strength of that brother of mine. Finally that thing was opened. Then we discovered that thing on your neck. Master Yang raised his eyebrows. Purple crystal jade essence. Chu Yang finally pieced everything together. The brother that Master was talking about is definitely Dukyu. Indeed, what Master Yang said next was exactly the same as what Dukyu said. Then, I thought, since there's purple crystal jade essence, then this purple crystal mine is still very promising. Maybe if I continued digging, it would actually be a huge purple crystal mine? So, I gave up on my original decision and continued mining. Master Yang's face was a little red. Obviously he despised his own behavior of changing his mind. Chu Yang also sighed. How good would it have been if I had stopped at that time? Master Yang let out a long sigh. After that, the number of purple crystals mined increased. It could actually keep up with the clan's cultivation and there was even a surplus. So, I continued mining excitedly. The Shao clan also took it as a joke. In any case they didn't take it to heart. So last year, that day, Master Yang was a little hesitant. After pondering for a long time, he gritted his teeth and said, "The deeper we dug, the wetter it became." Then slowly a spring appeared. Spring water? Chu Yang was greatly surprised. He was wondering what it was. It was actually a spring water? The appearance of spring water in the mine saved us from replenishing our supplies. So everyone was thirsty. At that time, everyone present drank until they were full. Yang Bao revealed a look of fear. Then everyone went crazy. This person said that he saw a ghost. That person said that everyone in the world was a demon. There was even someone who said that there was a worm in his stomach and he dug his stomach open. Chu Yang sucked in a breath of cold air. What kind of spring water could have such power? Then, we investigated in every possible way and did experiments. Only then did we realize that the problem was with that spring water. Yang Bao said with lingering fear, "At that time, if it wasn't for your grandmother stopping me, I could also go up and drink a few mouthfuls." Old Mistress Yang rolled her eyes at the side and scolded in a low voice, "Idiot! As long as one drinks this water, they will lose their minds. Even those with low cultivation will lose their minds." Yang Bao said somewhat hesitantly, "My cultivation is also not high." Chu Yang almost burst out in laughter. Yang Bao stammered for a long time before he said, "Then we sealed that place and dug in another direction." Chu Yang was greatly surprised again. He thought that something would happen with this spring water. He didn't expect that it would change direction right after. We dug for another half a month. This time we didn't dig out any spring water. Instead we dug out 2 claws. Yang Bao sighed heavily. It was these 2 claws that brought about a disaster for the Yang clan. Just a little bit more. Even if the entire clan died in the hands of the Shao clan. 2 claws? Chu Yang's eyes widened. What kind of claws can have such great power? Sigh. Master Yang said with infinite hesitation, "It's all your uncle's fault." "My uncle?" Chu Yang was even more puzzled. "What's going on? What are you talking about? What are you talking about?" Old Mistress Yang finally couldn't help but slap him. "Hurry up and say it." Master Yang felt extremely wronged. "Aren't I talking now? Don't interrupt." Chu Yang rolled his eyes. When those 2 claws were entangled together, one was so thick that it would take 2 people to wrap their arms around it. The other was much smaller, but it was still bigger than the known bird claws. That thick one. Very majestic. Facing that claw, one wouldn't even dare to move. It was as if there was a primordial beast in front of it. Could tear one apart at any time. That thin one. It had colorful patterns all over and was shining brightly. Both of them were lifelike. I examined them for a long time but didn't discover anything. After I discovered it, I drew a sketch. So, I ordered someone to draw a sketch and secretly sent someone to find out. Then, I discovered that one of the 2 claws was actually a dragon's claw and the other was actually a phoenix's claw. Yang Bao took a deep breath. I was shocked at that time. Chu Yang was dumbfounded and almost couldn't speak. I was shocked too. The dragon race and the phoenix race had always minded their own business. Why would there be a huge dragon's claw and a phoenix's claw in a pit? Yang Bao swallowed his saliva and said with some lingering fear. Chu Yang was also considering this question. What reason could make a dragon? Why would a phoenix's claw not let go? And even be buried here together? So, I searched through all the ancient records and finally found a book that said, although the Dragon Clan and the Phoenix Clan don't interfere with each other, the leaders of the 2 clans would meet at a place every once in a while to have some important discussion. And the place chosen by the leaders of the 2 races, according to ancient legends, was a place of auspiciousness. Yang Bao laughed bitterly. Back then, when the Yang clan chose Aspen Valley as the place to settle down, the geomancer once said that this place was auspicious and had the omen of auspiciousness. At that time, I only thought that it was a geomancer saying. Dismissive. Who knew that it was actually, really? Chu Yang was already speechless. He was already stunned. A place of auspiciousness. His head was buzzing, full of this word. It was like a bolt from the blue, exploding continuously. The 7th fragment of the tribulation sword. A place of auspiciousness, the 7th fragment of the tribulation. Chu Yang had been so conflicted about this that he was about to have cerebral palsy. He didn't expect to actually receive such shocking news when he returned home. It was really a case of searching high and low for something only to find it by chance. After a moment of dizziness, he said in confusion, "This kind of news should be kept strictly confidential. How could it be leaked? And even to the point where the whole family had to move to seek refuge?" Old Master Yang stomped his feet. "Isn't that so? At that time, only me and the 2 chief stewards knew about this. I reminded them repeatedly, not to leak it out. And indeed it didn't leak out. It's all my fault for having such a cheap mouth." Master Yang slapped himself on the face. "My mouth is so cheap. One time after I drank I actually told your uncle. Oh my God, if it weren't for the fact that you only have one uncle, I would have killed him to silence him." Chu Yang was flabbergasted. He broke out in cold sweat and shivered, begging for votes. Gee, I was in the limelight for a while. Just now, I was still writing when 7 or 8 little boys actually ran up to the 5th floor and knocked on my door. When I opened the door, I immediately received an order. "Time's up. Old Zhang. It's time to move. Escape to write my story. Begging for votes. Argued that you're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.